Chapter 51. Gu Fei exited the tavern and immediately ran in the direction of the Thieves' Guild. He didn't need to know the exact location of Non-Smiler because the current situation in Cloud City was, where Non-Smiler was, there would be many people. Everyone in the city heard about this never-ending chase. From level 30 to level 23, it took less than an hour, and the pursuit seemed to be continuing. The rumor about the masked killer had already spread like wildfire. Everyone wanted to see it with their own eyes, and the most effective way was, of course, to follow Non-Smiler. Fortunately, the chat window of the parallel world didn't have a public channel like the world of online games, or else there would definitely be many players who would send Non-Smiler to the trading window just to see the killer's glory. As he gradually approached the Thieves' Guild, Gu Fei really did see a gathering of people. He squeezed his way in to take a look and saw Non-Smiler and a few of his best friends walking in the middle of the street. Behind them was a large group of players. The group that Gu Fei belonged to circled around and ran to the intersection in front to take a look. There were many people squeezing on the rooftops on both sides of the street. Non-Smiler was obviously unhappy to be surrounded by people like this. But he could only swallow his anger. Because there were too many people, if he scolded a few words, Non-Smiler would drop another level before the killer came. Gu Fei smiled slightly. "Sorry. Excuse me." Gu Fei apologized along the way and left the crowd. He found a place where he could go upstairs and climbed up the wall. The players on the rooftops were all focused on Non-Smiler on the street below. Gu Fei secretly changed into his killer outfit and tiptoed behind the others to find a place where Non-Smiler was walking. "Brother, excuse me." Gu Fei patted the person in front of him. The person turned around impatiently, but as soon as he saw Gu Fei, his eyes immediately lit up. Gu Fei hurriedly made a gesture to keep quiet. The person covered his mouth with both hands and nodded furiously, then used his shoulder to push the guy next to him. "What are you doing?" The person next to him turned his head. When he saw Gu Fei, his eyes immediately lit up. Gu Fei hurriedly made a gesture for him to keep quiet. That person covered his mouth with both hands and nodded desperately. Then, in the blink of an eye, a group of players covered their mouths with their hands while their eyes shone. They quietly opened up a path for Gu Fei, and Gu Fei slowly appeared through the gap. The players across the street burst into commotion. Their eyes immediately shone, and Gu Fei quickly made a gesture. Why was it suddenly so quiet? Non-Smiler found it a little strange. With so many people gathered together, the chattering noise was not small. But just now, it suddenly became very quiet. It was so quiet that he could hear the wind above his head. The Non-Smiler hurriedly raised his head, only to see a red light cleaving towards him. The red light made the unsmiling man's face pale. Soon, he was far away from the crowd. The few buddies of the Non-Smiler had also gone crazy. They had been following the Non-Smiler and had been very, very careful. This time, when they saw so many onlookers, they felt that even if the killer wanted to strike, they would be aware of it. Who would have thought that so many people would wholeheartedly cooperate with the killer? Nowadays, morals were really degenerating. There was no sympathy at all. The few guys thought in grief and indignation, but they could not turn their grief and indignation into strength. Once again, Gu Fei easily shook off their entanglement. The onlookers had already prepared a way out for him. Gu Fei flashed away and quickly shook off the entanglement of the Non-Smiler's companions. However, he could not shake off the onlookers' pursuit. Many people followed in Gu Fei's footsteps. For one thing, everyone was curious about the killer's true face. For another, following this killer was much easier than following the Non-Smiler, wasn't it? Gu Fei deeply understood that the power of fans was infinite. At this rate, the Non-Smiler's buddies could quickly catch up with the crowd and find him. Gu Fei could only continue to run like his life depended on it. He did not know how many laps he had gone in Cloud City, but Gu Fei still could not shake off the crowd behind him. After all, there was strength in numbers. Some people had clearly been shaken off before, but at the next intersection, Gu Fei was pleasantly surprised to find that the person in front was looking for him in a daze, and he just happened to bump into him. Such an exchange of old and new led to Gu Fei always carrying a string of tales. But the heavens did not disappoint those who tried. In the process of wandering through the streets and alleys, Gu Fei finally encountered the dazed non-smiler once. Was there any need to hesitate? He rushed over on horseback, raised his hand, and killed the non-smiler. In the flash of white light, Gu Fei vaguely saw that something seemed to have fallen to the ground. Behind him, a player cried out, "Dropped equipment." But then everyone found that Gu Fei had run away without looking back. Everyone was stunned, and suddenly rushed madly toward the item dropped by the non-smiler. No matter how tempting the truth of the mysterious killer was, it could not compare to a piece of equipment that might be of the highest quality. Just like that, Gu Fei unexpectedly got rid of the entanglement and ran into a street. When he saw that there was no one around, he quickly tore off his disguise and let out a long breath. At the same time, Unsworn Sword, who was still negotiating with July in Little Ray's bar, received 2 reports of the non-smiler being killed in a row. Counting on his fingers, the non-smiler was now level 21. Unsworn Sword was a little uneasy. Part of it was because he was worried about the face of his guild. The other part was actually a little afraid. Although the non-smiler was miserable now, this person was indeed a powerful character through and through. Otherwise, Unsworn Sword and the others would not have roped him into the 4 Seas and even given him the status of a core member. The non-smiler had no resistance at all in front of him. What if it was him? The Sword of No Oath felt a chill down its spine. Yes, he was the leader of the largest guild in the clouds with 300 members, but this did not mean that he could take 300 people out to level up every day. This assassin-like character came and went like a ghost. In such a short time, he had already killed the non-smiler to level 9. It was really too scary. What was even more frightening was that currently, this guy was only attacking alone. According to the previous report of the non-smiler's party being wiped out, the other party had 6 people at that time. If the 6 of them acted together, wouldn't that be even more frightening? The fear in his heart tilted the balance of the negotiation. Was there still a need to waste energy on a level 21 guy? He had already been killed 9 times. How could the guild's face be redeemed? Moreover, the other party's current spearhead was focused on the non-smiler. If the guild began to officially support the non-smiler with great fanfare, wouldn't the other party's target be everyone in the guild? Unsworn Sword deeply understood the pain of the enemy in the dark while he was in the light. After weighing the pros and cons, he finally made up his mind. After a long breath, he said, "Leader July, what do you think? We will now banish the non-smiler from the guild. You guys solve your own problems." Unsworn. The first to be shocked by this decision was Feng Xing, who was beside Unsworn Sword. Unsworn Sword looked at him, but didn't explain anything. Naturally, July and the others were also very surprised. They never imagined that Unsworn Sword would make such a big concession. Banishing the non-smiler from the guild meant that they had nothing to do with the non-smiler. In other words, Unhindered had retreated on this matter. "Leader Unsworn, you're very reasonable. I'm impressed." Luo Luo offered a very artistic compliment. July was still a little confused. She felt that she hadn't said any strong words to attack the other party. Why did the other party have such a strong concession? While she was still in a daze, Unsworn Sword and Feng Xing had already stood up. "Then we'll be going back. This dagger, I think we should take it back. It can be considered an explanation for the non-smiler." July nodded. Unsworn Sword picked up the Wind Whisper and walked out of Little Ray's bar with Feng Xing. Feng Xing asked the moment they walked out. "The other party is too strong. You saw it too." In just a short while, the non-smiler was killed twice. Unsworn Sword said, "Are you afraid? It's not just me. I'm afraid for you guys. I'm afraid for the entire guild. If such a person sets his eyes on any one of you, do you have the confidence to resist?" Unsworn Sword said, "What are you afraid of? Let him come. You're not afraid, but that doesn't mean the 300 members are not afraid. When everyone is in a panic and we can't solve it, can the guild still exist?" Feng Xing didn't speak. "Let's go. Return the Wind Whisper to the non-smiler. We'll have an explanation for him." Unsworn Sword said, "Who the hell are these people?" Feng Xing waved his fist angrily. The grievance in his heart was very hard to bear. Remember at first, For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is never too late. Feng Xing helplessly nodded. In Little Ray's bar, July and the other three were excited about the development of this matter. Now that he doesn't have the support of the biggest guild, and his level is so low, we don't have to be afraid of him. July said happily, "That guy chasing him is so strong." Fiercely's eyes were like stars. "Who the hell is he?" Sister Luoluo. "I don't know either." Luoluo shook her head. Apart from the leader of their mercenary group, he didn't reveal the identities of the other members to me. Now everyone outside is saying that this person is a mage. According to what I know, this is a mage who can challenge the bandit leader Suatu alone. Too strong? Luoluo, contact him and see if you can arrange a meeting, so that you can thank him in person. July said, "How do you thank him? With your body?" Luoluo smiled. "What nonsense are you talking about?" July said indifferently. Xiao Yu suddenly let out a cheer and jumped up. "What's wrong, Xiao Yu?" The three girls were puzzled. "Can I go do the quest now?" Xiao Yu asked. Go. But still be careful." July said. "It's fine. Non-Smiler doesn't have the time right now. The chase is still going on." Luoluo said. "Sister Luoluo, you're sitting here too. How do you know so much about the outside world?" Fiercely felt strange. "I'm talking to their leader privately, he told me." Luoluo said. In another private room 3 rooms away from the 4 girls, everyone was criticizing the Han family young master. "Why don't you drink? Why are you always in a daze? Don't be noisy." Han family young master said, "I'm in the middle of a business discussion with my employer. We've worked so hard this time, no matter what, we have to charge more. It's what we should do. It's what we should do." The 4 nodded. "Then this time, is it Qianli who gets the biggest share again?" Brother Yu asked carefully. Sword Demon nodded. "It's what we should do." Everyone burst into tears. "We're just a bunch of workers." Yu Tianxinming wailed. "Qianli, I hate you." Achoo! Gu Fei, who had just killed Non-Smiler for the 10th time, sneezed. "Today's really tiring," Gu Fei muttered to himself. But it wasn't over yet. The masked killer is running away. A scream rang out, and a group of players ran forward, forming a human formation for a moment, and then a human formation for a moment. Chapter 52. Unsmiler, who had fallen to level 20, was completely stunned. He stood motionlessly in the rogue guild, allowing the surrounding players to point at him. "Did you see that? The 11th place rogue EXP leaderboard has now been defeated to level 20. TSK. Fuck, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and come out, I want to see the masked killer." "Haha, I've already seen him twice. I chased him for 5 blocks. Why isn't he coming out yet? I'm dying of anxiety." The players were all anxious, wishing Unsmiler wouldn't hurry up and come out of the safe zone to die. If it wasn't for the fact that physical contact was prohibited after logging out of the safe zone, the situation of being thrown out of the safe zone to be killed as Gu Fei suggested would have already happened to Unsmiler. The masked killer didn't come out, but the players saw Unsworn Sword and Feng Xing. These two were like Unsmiler, core members of Reigning the Four Seas. However, the players who knew the inside story knew that Reigning the Four Seas was formed by Unsworn Sword, Feng Xing, and a player called Reflection of Years. Unsmiler was just a latecomer. The two saw the large crowd, but didn't say anything, walking straight to Unsmiler in the safe zone. "Unsmiler!" Unsworn Sword called him. Unsmiler raised his head, his eyes a deathly gray. "The reincarnated amethysts people came to talk to me," Unsworn Sword said. Unsmiler didn't say anything, quietly listening. "They said that they can return your Wind Whisper, but on the condition that you leave Reigning the Four Seas." Unsworn Sword's eyes shone as he looked at Unsmiler. "What do you think?" Unsmiler's gray eyes lit up again. "That's easy. I'll leave the guild first, and I'll come back when I get the Wind Whisper." Unsworn Sword's eyes instantly became spirited. This Unsmiler really was a rotten person. How could he come up with such a wretched idea in an instant? This scammer's habits were clear as day. Unsworn Sword suddenly felt that kicking this guy out of the guild was definitely worth it in the long run. If one's character wasn't good, everything would be difficult. As he thought, Unsworn Sword took out the Wind Whisper and tossed it to Unsmiler. That's it. After saying that, Unsworn Sword had already turned around and left with Feng Xing. What does that mean? The non-smiler was stunned. He soon received an answer. System notification. Due to repeated violations of guild rules, player Unsmilerts has been expelled from reigning the Four Seas. Please take this as a warning to other guild members. No oath, what do you mean? The non-smiler roared. When people were angry, they would often smash things to vent their anger. Unsmiler had already raised his hand, but he quickly remembered that he had just retrieved the wind code word and hurriedly pulled it back into his pocket. Fuck! Non-laughing roared. The crowd hissed. Everyone was hoping that non-smiler would throw out the wind code word in a daze. Gu Fei, who was mixed in the crowd, also rubbed his palms together. This time, the non-smiler had been hiding in the safe zone for a long time. Now that he had gotten his precious dagger back, would he happily come out for a stroll? In the end, Unsmiler put away the wind code word and quickly went offline. Tisk! The crowd hissed again. Seeing that there was no good show to watch, they finally dispersed. Gu Fei followed the dispersing crowd in disappointment. Suddenly he received a message from July. What are you doing? You're back in the guild. After Unsmiler went offline, Gu Fei had nothing to do at the moment. He walked through a few streets and arrived at Amethyst's guild. There were already quite a few girls gathered in the room. Gu Fei was probably the last to arrive. As soon as he entered, he heard July's happy announcement. Unsmiler has been kicked out of reigning the Four Seas. The girls cheered. Gu Fei stood alone in a corner and smiled. His heart was filled with a sense of achievement. Sister Luoluo, it's all thanks to the mercenary group you found. They're amazing. Who are they? The girls asked curiously. Luoluo said regretfully, I've only seen their leader. The others didn't show up. They also covered their faces when they attacked. It seems like they didn't want to expose their identities. July nodded. I wanted to thank them in person, especially the mage among them. It seems like I shouldn't cause any trouble for them. The girls felt that it was a pity, especially fiercely. Her face was filled with endless regret. I really want to know who that mage is. Gu Fei listened quietly and maintained his smile. However, the girls did not know what Gu Fei had done in the dark, but they could see it in the open. July continued to clap her hands. Other than Luoluo's mercenary group, we actually have Qianli to thank for this. Thanks to him stealing Unsmiler's exquisite dagger, the four of us were able to escape just now. Now we have a powerful bargaining chip when we negotiate with reigning the Four Seas. This time, the girls' emotions were not as high as before. It wasn't that they had a deep prejudice against Gu Fei. The main thing was that they had always treated Gu Fei and the others with indifference. Now that he had helped them a lot, they immediately showed their fiery enthusiasm, which was a bit embarrassing. The girls were relatively thin-skinned and couldn't accept such a big change in attitude. For a moment, they couldn't get over it. However, there were exquisite equipment, and there were also exquisite people. Fiercely, who had always disliked Gu Fei, now happily changed his attitude and walked in front of Gu Fei. I didn't know that you were also quite amazing. Gu Fei still only smiled, expressing his gratitude for Fiercely's praise. Fiercely was rebuffed and walked away resentfully. July also felt that the atmosphere was a bit awkward and quickly continued. All right, this matter is over. Everyone can continue playing the game without worry. The girls clapped and then gathered to the side to continue gossiping about the legendary masked assassin. Thank you, July said solemnly as she walked in front of Gu Fei. Hee, it's nothing. Even though I'm only a temporary worker, I'm still a member of the guild. Of course we should protect each other. Gu Fei said with a smile. July didn't know what to say. They had never seen Gu Fei as a member of the guild, and it seemed like Gu Fei didn't see himself as a member of the guild either. But at this critical moment, the so-called temporary worker was the most useful person in the entire guild. Don't mind their attitude. They're just, July couldn't find the words to explain. It's nothing. Gu Fei said, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. July said. Gu Fei turned around and wanted to leave, but July suddenly called out to him. What's the matter? Gu Fei turned around. Where's your straw hat? Don't you always wear a straw hat? July asked. Gu Fei's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly replied, Hey, I didn't know how to play before, so I didn't know that equipment can't be worn randomly. That thing isn't suitable for mages, so I've already thrown it away. Oh? I'm leaving. Gu Fei waved his hand and left the guild. What's the matter? Do you think Qianli is the masked assassin? After Gu Fei left, Luo Luo came to July's side. I heard that the masked assassin also wore a straw hat, a mage's robe, and was level 30. Isn't this very similar to Qianli? July said. Indeed, in addition, Qianli also likes to use knives like that person. When he fought with Little Yu, he used a knife. Luo Luo said. But Luo Luo had just finished speaking when she continued. Qianli didn't hit Little Yu last time. If it wasn't for me, he would have already died once. He deliberately let Little Yu win? July asked. I can't tell. Luo Luo replied. He couldn't even beat Little Yu, but he could so quickly take care of Non-Smiler. It really shouldn't be the same person. July said. Who knows, maybe the assassin also saw Qianli's funny appearance, so he deliberately dressed like this to hide his identity. Luo Luo said. Then he really does have a sense of humor. July laughed. No matter what, the possibility of it being Qianli is quite high. Luo Luo said. We'll definitely meet again in the future. July said. Gu Fei, who had left Amethyst, had already realized this problem. Due to his unconventional attire, people like July, Luo Luo, and the others who had seen him before would probably guess it was him. What a helpless situation. It was better to find the Han family young master and the others to discuss it. Just as he was thinking, the Han family young master sent a message. How is it, assassin? Non-Smiler went offline. Gu Fei said. It's already the 10th time, you should rest. Hurry back to the tavern, there's something important. Han family young master said. What is it? Gu Fei asked. Splitting the money. Han family young master said. Oh, I'll be right there. Gu Fei said. In Little Ray's bar, the 5 of them sat in a circle, waiting for Gu Fei. There were 10 bulging money bags piled up on the table, like a small mountain. Open it and pour it out. Yu Tianxinming's voice was a little shaky. 1,000 gold coins. It'll be a spectacular pile, I want to see. Useless. The other 4 scolded while gulping. How much did you earn from the last mission? Yu Tianxinming asked. 210 gold coins, Qianli took 60 gold coins, we each took 30 gold coins. Han family young master said. There's actually so many this time. Rebirth Amethyst, these women are really rich. Imperial Sky God Ming said. How are we splitting it this time? Brother, you asked. Qianli did put in a lot of effort this time. He takes half, and the 5 of us take the other half. What do you think? Han family young master asked. That's right. Sword Demon nodded. 500 gold coins? Yu Tianxinming was at a loss. 100 gold coins isn't a small amount, be content. Unscathed in battle said, we can finally change to a slightly better weapon. Brother, you looked around. Now in our group, only Sword Demon's Frostbite Memories and Yu Tian's Bright Moon Godly Bow are of the highest quality. My bow isn't the highest quality, it's just a little higher than a normal bow. Sword Demon's is the highest quality, 30% lethality. If my bow had this attribute, I'd be invincible in the world. Yu Tianxinming hooted. Be low-key, the king of assassins is right behind you. Unscathed in battle said as he patted Yu Tianxinming. Yu Tianxinming turned around and saw Gu Fei, who had already lifted the curtain and was standing behind him. Chapter 53. King of Assassins, you're back. Sit down, sit down. Yu Tianxinming jumped up and shouted, giving his seat to Gu Fei. Gu Fei touched his head and smiled. Good boy. That's a lot of money. Gu Fei noticed the money bags on the table as soon as he sat down. Qianli, how do you think we should split it? Han family young master asked with ulterior motives. As the saying goes, strangers the first time, familiarity the second. If last time, Gu Fei said that everyone was embarrassed to split it equally, then this time, they would definitely listen to him without hesitation. None of the people here were easy to deal with. It was just that Sword Demon was sometimes a little too serious. However, when Han family young master spoke, he already sent a look over. It was unknown if Sword Demon understood, but he didn't speak. I say. Facing their expectant eyes, Gu Fei started counting with his fingers. The target is non-smiler. He killed it a total of 10 times. I killed it 8 times, and Sword Demon killed it twice. There are 10 money bags here, so it should be 2 for Sword Demon and 8 for me, right? And that's right. I support it. Top it. Sword Demon said. Back your head. The Han family young master was enraged. Using eyes to communicate is too outdated. Gu Fei laughed at Han family young master. We all use private messages. You two bitches. Han family young master continued to scold. Forget it. Let's split it equally. You guys have worked hard for a day. Gu Fei said generously. I was waiting for you to say that. Yutian Shenming rushed up like a hungry tiger and took away the 2 money bags. The others also reached out their hands. Gu Fei felt a great sense of achievement again. At the same time, he was surprised that July and the other girls were really rich. Based on the current exchange rate of using RMB to buy equipment at the exchange, and then selling equipment at the auction house for in-game currency, 1 gold coin in the game was worth about 10 renminbi. After all, it was still the early stages of the game, and the production of gold coins was still quite low. Even RMB warriors were having a hard time saving up gold coins, because most of the equipment that players would bring to the exchange for sale were relatively expensive. After players bought this type of equipment with RMB, it would be very difficult for them to return to the game and sell it for game coins because the price was just too high. In such a situation, being able to save up 1,000 gold coins was really amazing. He must have bought a lot of low-priced equipment with RMB and sold it bit by bit for game currency to save up. It would be very difficult to complete this project without amazing willpower. When Gu Fei had enough of the aftertaste, he realized that there was no more money on the table. Hey, where's mine? Gu Fei slammed the table. Strange, why is it gone? Someone said. The intelligence specialist, Brother Yu, reminded, there are 6 of us, and the money was divided into 10 bags. Pour it out and divide it equally. Gu Fei said, even if you divide 1,000 by 6, it won't be enough. Everyone made a very troubled expression. Gu Fei was just about to explode when the group leader, Han family young master, said, no need. It's just right to divide it. Are you kidding me? I don't have a single cent? Gu Fei said. Have you forgotten? The young master of the Han family said unhurriedly, you drank here yesterday and spent 200 gold coins. That's the deposit for our business this time, and I've already paid for your drinks. 200 gold coins? What did you drink, Qianli? Everyone exclaimed. That's not right. That day, Brother Yu and I drank a total of 4 cups. The money for the drinks should be. Where's Brother Yu? Where did Brother Yu go? Gu Fei looked around. We have to get to the bottom of this. I'll go get him. Unscathed in battle stood up and went out. However, after waiting for a long time and not seeing anyone come back, Yutian Shenming slapped his thigh. Aya, these 2 old foxes must have colluded with each other. I'll go get them. The moment Yutian Shenming left, Han family young master stood up. Hey, don't go too far. All of you come back. Just as he was about to walk out the door, a wave of heat suddenly swept past his face, and Han family young master hurriedly dodged. Gu Fei's fire baptism was already in front of the door. The saber is not bad. The Han family's young master smiled. I've cut it 8 times today just for not smiling. Gu Fei looked at his own knife and said, in terms, the hand is burning hot, and the condition is surprisingly good. I don't believe you'll really cut me. Han family young master said. Of course not, but if you don't take out the money, don't think of leaving today. Gu Fei said. All right. Han family young master stretched and sat back in his seat. I won't leave then. Do you think my title as the god of wine is just for show? Little Ray, bring the wine. I want the most expensive, put it on young master's tab. Gu Fei added, I'm afraid of you. Bring 2 bottles. Han family young master shouted. Xiao Lei quickly carried 2 bottles of wine in. This kind of business was not something that could be found often. One bottle was 120 gold coins, 2 bottles 240. Han family young master happily threw the money bag and laughed. Now I have no money, what can you do to me? Ha! Let's fight to the bitter end. We'll all be poor. Gu Fei smiled faintly. His hand moved like lightning, and the 2 bottles of wine that had just been placed on the table were pulled into his arms. Hey, what are you doing? Are you eating alone? That's not very kind. Han family young master said. Gu Fei smiled brightly and reached out his hand to stop little Ray, who was about to leave after receiving the money. Little Ray, these 2 bottles of wine, I'll sell them to you for 100 gold coins each, okay? Little Ray was stunned, and so was Han family young master. You don't want such a good deal? Gu Fei said with a smile. Little Ray suddenly smiled and let go of the 2 money bags. Gu Fei quickly caught them and put the 2 bottles of wine into little Ray's arms. Let's go. Gu Fei stood up, saluted Han family young master, and ran away as fast as he could. Fuck! Han family young master roared as if he had just woken up from a dream. The players outside the room heard him and asked curiously, Little Ray, your pub has started to provide erotic services? Forget it. Sword Demon comforted Han family young master. I'll treat you to a drink. Good brother. Han family young master patted Sword Demon's shoulder. Little Ray, don't ask for the most expensive one. Sword Demon stuck his dagger on the table and said slowly, 240 gold coins for 2 bottles, I don't have enough money. Give me 2 bottles of the second most expensive wine. Han family young master shouted. That night, the legendary god of wine Han family young master drank and cried. He's really an assassin. After leaving the pub, Gu Fei went to the leveling area to kill some monsters. Just like what he had experienced before, the uncontrollable high and low damage of the baptism of flames greatly affected his rhythm. He encountered many dangerous situations when dealing with several NPCs. After all, this time, no one would shout don't kill, capture him alive. In this regard, Gu Fei could solve this problem by changing to a weapon that didn't have this enchantment probability. However, he didn't do so, because to him, this was a rare opportunity to train. In the game, there was no training on the body, because the body's reaction, strength, and other things were not determined by humans, but by the game data. The training in the game could be said to be concentrated in the brain. When faced with certain situations, what was the most appropriate solution to deal with them? Counterattack or dodge? Which enemy should he counterattack? Which direction should he move into dodge? These were all decisions that needed to be made in an instant. How to choose the most correct and most effective path from the many choices. Some people said that it was based on intuition. That's right, but intuition was also divided into 2 types. One was called talent, and the other was called experience. Gu Fei didn't dare to say that he was very talented. After all, he wouldn't encounter such a situation in real life, but at least he could accumulate a lot of experience. The eye chased the hand, and the hand chased the eye. The eye actually referred to the observation, judgment, and decision made in an instant. This could be practiced both in and out of the game. However, outside the game, Gu Fei wouldn't have so many opportunities to practice. As for the hand, it could only be used to train the body outside the game. In the game, it relied on attribute points and equipment, which was much simpler. At this time, Gu Fei's killing efficiency was slightly lower, and he could die if he was the slightest bit careless. If it were any other player, they wouldn't choose to continue in such a situation. However, Gu Fei was different. After all, his goal in the game was completely different from ordinary players. From his point of view, the value of this kind of practice was more important than quickly leveling up a few more points. The fluctuating attack damage caused Gu Fei's originally stable attack rhythm to have to adjust from time to time according to this 30% enchantment rate. Killing monsters became interesting and full of variables. Of course, this was only for Gu Fei. If it were an ordinary player, they would either choose to kill monsters one by one or change their equipment. They wouldn't continue to take such risks. After farming for more than an hour, Gu Fei ended his gaming life for the day. But the legend that he had created continued. Before Gu Fei had finished hunting down Non-Smiler, this matter had already made its way to the game's forums. As the pursuit progressed, it was constantly updated and finally stopped at 10 times. Today's act of hunting someone down by 10 levels caused a heated discussion among the players. In the end, there were differing opinions. The players who were extremely passionate about PvP naturally didn't approve of this kind of behavior. They only had one opinion: awesome. As for the players who were deeply worried about everything, they had many worries about this. What nourishment of violence! The game had become a one-sided PvP arena. They even began to worry that this would lead to a decline in the game company's revenue, a problem that they didn't need to worry about at all. Most of them just wanted to watch the show. After they knew that today's pursuit had ended because Non-Smiler had gone offline, they eagerly looked forward to the day when Non-Smiler would come back online and be hunted again. In any case, there were two things that the players agreed on. First, this killer was really OP. They heard that he was only a mage, but he had used melee combat to cut a thief to this state. He was definitely OP. Second, this Non-Smiler was stupid. Everyone knew that he was being hunted, and he wasn't a match for the enemy, but he didn't hurry to go offline and hide. Instead, he let someone cut him down by 10 levels. He was definitely stupid. Chapter 54. After logging off, Gu Fei suddenly felt a little tired. With the amount of time Gu Fei spent playing the game every day, any normal person wouldn't find it tiring. It could be seen that Gu Fei had a very fulfilling day. The constant pursuit on horseback, the intense battle after switching to fire baptism, and the high level of concentration caused Gu Fei's mental exhaustion to be several times greater than usual. Now that he had left the game, he couldn't help but feel tired as soon as his nerves relaxed. Being an expert in the game was also very tiring. Gu Fei, Sword Demon, and the others fought day and night in the game. Otakus like them definitely couldn't compare to his body. It was hard for them to play the game so hard every day. After resting for a night, Gu Fei wasn't in a hurry to go online the next day. Instead, he casually browsed the official forums. It couldn't be denied that Gu Fei was an expert in fighting, but he was still a noob in other areas. After all, he was just a newbie. Fire baptism was an effective supplement to his attacks, and it also provided a good training environment for him. But at a critical moment, the random enchantment attacks were a bit troublesome. Gu Fei wanted to see if there was a way to increase the enchantment rate to 100%. If that was the case, Gu Fei could be said to be a stable high-damage killer. However, it was a pity that the current research on enchantments in the game was focused on the deceleration of frost damage or the numbness of lightning damage. As for fire enchantments, because melee classes were poor in mana, it was better to choose poison damage than fire magic. The amount of poison damage depended on the equipment and had nothing to do with mana. Moreover, it could continuously reduce health. As long as the equipment wasn't too bad, it could easily exceed fire damage. There was another important reason. Enchantment damage had a prerequisite. It had to be a normal attack. When using a character's skills to attack, the enchantment on the weapon would automatically be frozen. Normal leveling didn't matter, but in a real difficult battle, such as PK or challenging a boss, skills were the key to victory. Therefore, enchantments that purely dealt damage like fire magic were even less valuable and were directly viewed as trash by players. Of course, no one would research trash items. Gu Fei rummaged around but didn't find any useful information. He only knew that apart from weapons, rings, necklaces, and badges could also have a chance of having an enchantment attribute. In addition to weapons, there were head, body, belt, shoes, as well as 2 rings, 1 necklace, and 1 badge. There were a total of 9 parts. Gu Fei's 2 fingers and neck were still empty, showing that the drop rate of accessories was relatively low. As for Gu Fei's straw hat and boots, they weren't too bad, but they weren't suitable for mages, which was why the Han family young master and mocked them. After some research, Gu Fei felt that he could go and see if there were any fire magic accessories that he could buy. In addition, he really should change into a more approachable outfit that didn't have such a strong personality. After looking at these things, Gu Fei returned to the forum's main page. He found the most popular sticker on the forum, Cloud City Close Combat Mage, 10 steps to kill a man, Qianli won't stay. When the deed is done, leave with a brush of the robe. Gu Fei's heart tightened and he quickly clicked on it. Sure enough, this was the report of Gu Fei's pursuit of Non-Smiler in Cloud City yesterday. The cause of the incident had been dug out by experienced gossipers with keen senses. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was the process of Non-Smiler being killed 10 times. All the information was gathered from eyewitnesses from all over the place. If Gu Fei commented on it, it was basically true. The debate about the incident was mainly focused on two aspects. The first was the moral aspect. This was the topic that had been the hottest topic since yesterday's incident on the forum. Gu Fei casually scanned through a few opinions and didn't think much of it. In this matter, Gu Fei didn't feel guilty at all. Non-Smiler lied to July 1st. Later on, he was tricked by Shi Xiaotian, who was a fan of trickery, on his own initiative. It had nothing to do with July. And now, in this game, Non-Smiler had started to harass July. Coincidentally, such a lousy fellow had become Gu Fei's business partner. Gu Fei naturally had no qualms about killing him. These few posts in the forum were not enough to affect Gu Fei's mental state at all. After that, the discussion was about the technical aspect. A mage chasing down a thief in close combat sounded like a fantasy no matter how one listened to it. The players watching the live broadcast were not in vain. One post opened a portal and led everyone to a specialized post on researching Gu Fei's skills. As soon as the post appeared, it included a full set of Gu Fei's equipment. It was obvious that countless people had used identification on Gu Fei. But soon, the next few posts went off topic. Everyone started to discuss where Eddie's coat of arms came from. A single attribute plus 6, a total of 5 attributes would add up to 30. This was currently the best equipment with additional attributes. Gu Fei's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, he had seen this post. Otherwise, Eddie's coat of arms would have been enough to tell everyone who the masked killer was. Based on the people he knew in the game, July and the other girls should have used identification on him. If they saw this post again, his identity would have been exposed. But they probably wouldn't say anything. That was the only thing Gu Fei could think of. Word got out. Gu Fei and the players who had been chasing him for several streets had to admit that it would be troublesome. Gu Fei calmed himself down and continued to read. After a few more posts, the post returned to the main topic and began to discuss Gu Fei's skills and tactics. Due to the information provided by the audience, the characteristics of Gu Fei's character were obvious: agility and magic damage. His high speed and magic damage allowed Gu Fei to finish off the rogue, Non-Smiler, in an instant. Then, many experts began to analyze the character's potential. Everyone had their own opinions and argued endlessly. Gu Fei noticed a comment by a user called Strange Pupil. This guy thought that it was a coincidence that Gu Fei could kill Non-Smiler. The rogue focused on strength and was suppressed by an agility mage. At the same time, the rogue had low HP and was vulnerable to the mage's physical damage and magic damage. If the rogue was a character with high HP or a higher speed, the outcome would be uncertain. Moreover, very few players wore magic resistance equipment at this stage of the game. If they did, then they would be able to greatly weaken the magic resistance that focused on enchantments. In addition, Strange Pupil also mentioned a detail that not many people paid attention to. Although Non-Smiler had been killed a total of 10 times so far, the first time was when he was at his strongest state, level 30. No one seemed to have seen how he was killed. The second time was when Non-Smiler was at level 29. It was a rogue who assassinated him. After Non-Smiler lost 2 levels, the mage began to attack. Did this mean that even when Non-Smiler was at his peak, the mage was not so confident in killing him? This analysis could be considered reasonable and well-founded. If it was done by an ordinary player, it would be completely reasonable. However, for Gu Fei, he had overlooked the fact that Gu Fei knew Kung Fu. After all, Gu Fei had killed Non-Smiler in 2 or 3 attacks. It was difficult to see the real skill of Kung Fu if one was not an expert. After reading all the replies, Gu Fei was quite disappointed. He had hoped that there would be a comprehensive study of his character in this post. In the end, just like all such posts, it went from discussions, to arguments, to insults, and finally to nothing. Gu Fei still had to figure out how to make a path suitable for himself as a mage. After exiting the forum, Gu Fei logged into the game. The first thing he did when he came online was to remove Eddie's coat of arms. There was too much attention on his masked identity. What if someone on the street used Identify on him? His identity would be exposed immediately. Gu Fei walked quickly to the auction house, trying to buy a common outfit to disguise himself. However, the auction house was a little strange today. Gu Fei could not do anything inside, and the few NPCs working there refused to talk to him. Gu Fei did not know what was going on. He tried again and was very busy. Suddenly, someone patted him on the shoulder. "What are you doing here?" Gu Fei hurriedly turned around and saw Brother Yu. He had coincidentally met an expert, so he hurriedly asked. Brother Yu stared at him, dumbfounded. "We were wondering why you were so crazy. So you don't know the rules of PK? Why?" Gu Fei asked quickly. Brother Yu explained, "Every time you kill a player in the game, you will accumulate 1 PK point. At first, some NPCs will stop serving you, and you will lose 2 levels. When your PK point reaches 10, all NPCs in the city will stop serving you, and you will lose 3 levels. When your PK point reaches 20, NPC guards and patrols will hunt you down, and you will lose 4 levels if you die and 2 levels if they catch you. You will also have to go to jail. When your PK point reaches 30, NPCs will kill you on the spot, and you will lose 5 levels. Then what do I do now?" Gu Fei was dumbfounded. "You should be below 20 points right now. You can turn yourself in and go to jail, and you will lose 1 PK point every hour. Or you can just float outside by yourself, and you will lose 1 PK point every 2 hours. Brother Yu said, "Who would choose to go to jail? Isn't it just that I can't buy things? What's the big deal?" Gu Fei said. Brother Yu nodded. "It seems that there is something even more important that you don't know. What is it?" There is a type of quest in the game called Wanted Quest. It refreshes once a day, and the target is a player with PK points. It can be collected as an individual or as a mercenary group, and the reward is based on the PK points of the culprit. You were in the limelight yesterday, so you will definitely be at the top of today's Wanted Quest list. Gu Fei was dumbfounded. He didn't think that fighting in the game would cause so much trouble. Chapter 55. If I'm on this wanted list, won't my identity be exposed? Gu Fei said. As long as you don't get caught, that's fine. Brother Yu said. Won't my name be announced? Gu Fei asked. It won't. Brother Yu shook his head. The people listed on the wanted list all have a number. Right now, your name is a wanted criminal number XXXX. So it's like that? Players who have accepted the wanted mission will have their coordinates updated every 5 minutes. So, as long as you calculate the time and move every 5 minutes, it won't be easy for the other side to find you. Brother Yu said, that makes sense. Then I'll hurry up and get going. Gu Fei looked at the time. It had already been 5 minutes since he went online. What do you want to buy? I'll help you. Brother Yu walked towards the auction house's trade window. Oh, give me a level 30 robe that a mage should wear. Then, see if there's a necklace, ring, or emblem that increases the probability of fire magic attacks. Give me one of each. Gu Fei said. Brother Yu expressionlessly left the trade window. It's getting late, let's hurry up and get going. Gu Fei. The two of them walked out of the auction house and quickly headed out of the city. They hadn't walked far when they heard a flurry of footsteps behind them. When they turned around, they saw several players rushing towards the auction house. They can't be coming for me. Gu Fei said in shock. It looks like it. Brother Yu said. There's quite a few people. Gu Fei said. Turn yourself in. Brother Yu said calmly. Huh? Gu Fei said. Then you should still cover your face. With so many people, it's hard to say if someone with sharp eyes won't notice your existence. Right now, you're marked with a number in their eyes. It's obvious. Brother Yu said. All right, let's hurry up and get out of the city. There are too many people in the city, it's troublesome. Gu Fei quickly ran out of the city. Brother Yu couldn't keep up with Gu Fei's speed at all. He could only shout from behind, be careful. Gu Fei waved at him without turning his head. Brother Yu returned to the auction house alone. Many players were searching the place, and new soldiers would occasionally arrive. Brother Yu felt that he had underestimated the severity of the situation. He did not expect Gu Fei to attract so many people to pursue him. The curiosity of humans is truly terrifying. After leaving the auction house, Brother Yu contacted the Han family young master and the others. Everyone was shocked when they heard the news. What? That guy doesn't know the PK rules? This trash. Let's have a meeting. As the guild leader, the Han family young master first criticized Gu Fei, then called everyone to meet at the usual place of Little Ray's bar. At the same time, Unstoppable 4C's Feng Xing was running to find their guild leader, Sword Without Oath. Here's our chance. The gate of Unstoppable 4C's was almost blown away by Feng Xing. Sword Without Oath was chatting with a few pretty girls in the guild when he was suddenly interrupted by Feng Xing. He frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "How many times have I told you? Stay calm and don't panic. The masked killer is on the wanted list." Feng Xing shouted. "He killed a non-smiler so many times, of course he's on the wanted list." Sword Without Oath said blandly, continuing to show his calmness in front of the girls. "Let's go, I'll go with you." Sword Without Oath waved his hand and said goodbye to the girls. He calmly walked out of the guild and gently closed the door. He turned around and said, "Holy shit! Why is he on the wanted list? He killed a non-smiler so many times, didn't he turn himself in and go to jail? If everyone chases him, won't his identity be exposed? What's the point of wearing a mask?" Feng Xing, say it. Sword Without Oath's impatient look was completely different from when he was in the guild. "I don't know either. I just heard that there's a criminal with a PK value of 15. I don't think there's anyone else other than this guy. Quick, let's go take a look." Sword Without Oath strode towards the wanted list. The wanted list was filled with people. Unsworn Sword swept his gaze across the crowd and saw many of the leaders of Cloud City's other guilds. Sword Without Oath could guess what these people were thinking. They just wanted to make friends with this ruthless person and pull him into their guild. In fact, Sword Without Oath had this plan in mind, but there was no need to think too much about it. With so many people, it was still uncertain who would end up in their hands. Sword Without Oath turned his head and searched the wanted list. The masked killer's information was at the top, PK value 15, number 27149. The people who were still in the hall were not in a hurry to accept the quest. They all thought that Gu Fei would turn himself in. The place to turn himself in was also this hall, so these people stared at the players entering and exiting. When they saw that it was a mage, their eyes lit up, followed by a look of disappointment. No wonder he didn't turn himself in. Turning himself in is a dead end, Sword Without Oath muttered to himself. There were many mages entering and exiting, but number 27149 was still at the top. In a corner of the hall, July, Luoluo, and Fiercely were also watching the flow of people in front of them. It must be him. Beginner's robe. Fiercely pointed at a player for the 17th time and shouted. Luoluo used an appraisal spell and sighed, "Fiercely. Experts don't have to be handsome, that's just your wishful thinking. Don't say that every handsome mage is. The one you pointed at is only level 12. "Oh, how long have we been here?" July asked. "Almost half an hour," Luoluo said. "Could it be that this person doesn't intend to turn himself in?" July said the truth. "It can't be? His PK value is 15, then he'll be floating outside for 30 hours and won't go offline in the middle? If he wants to go offline, he'll be discovered on the way back. As long as it's a player who has accepted the quest, they can attack him even in the safe zone," Luoluo said. "Then why hasn't he shown himself?" July glanced at the wanted list. Maybe he expected that there would be a lot of people waiting for him to turn himself in, so he's purposely waiting there. Luoluo said, "Oh, then let's wait a bit more." Everyone held this kind of thought and patiently waited until an hour had passed. It's a cleric." Fiercely pointed at a person and began to shout. Luoluo followed Fiercely's gaze and her eyes lit up. Luoluo lightly pulled the two of them and pointed at that person, whispering into their ears, "This person is the Han family young master." The young master of the Han family walked one round in the mission hall before quickly leaving. Luo pulled July and fiercely and quietly followed behind him. Han family young master walked very slowly. After crossing 2 streets, he came to a place where there was no one and suddenly turned around. The 3 girls quickly hid in a corner. "What are you hiding for? Come out, there are people watching you from behind." Han family young master shouted. "Don't move, he's definitely lying," fiercely said. "He's not lying." A clear voice sounded from behind the 3 of them. The 3 girls were dumbfounded. Fiercely looked back and was even more confused. "Did you hear someone talking?" July already stood up and looked at the air behind her and sighed. "It's a thief, he's hiding behind us. Can you come out now?" Han family young master continued to shout. The 3 girls helplessly walked out of the corner. Fiercely punched and kicked behind him, but didn't hit anything. "You're really careful. You even put an eye behind you," Luo said. Han family young master ignored her and only coldly said, "Our deal seems to have ended yesterday." "It's ended, but there might be new deals to do," Luo said. "We're not free right now," Han family young master said. "Oh, what are you busy with?" Luo asked. Han family young master smiled. "What do you think? This started because of us. If you need any help, we won't refuse." July said sincerely, "Miss, you've already paid us for everything we've done for you, and the price is very reasonable, so we don't owe each other anything. Right now, it's completely our own business, you don't need to worry about it. Put away your curiosity, and quickly go back," Han family young master said and turned around, preparing to leave. Han family young master fiercely suddenly shouted. Han family young master stopped his footsteps. "We know your name, and we know what you look like. Aren't you afraid that we'll tell others about you?" Fiercely shouted. Fiercely. July and Luo clearly didn't expect Fiercely to say that. "Are you threatening me?" Han family young master turned his head. "No, what I meant was, if you can let us know your identity, why can't you let us meet other people? We'll definitely keep it a secret," Fiercely said. Han family young master smiled and pointed at July. "Ask your president. Maybe she'll understand my thoughts." Chiwe was stunned. "Don't follow me anymore. I don't have a good temper, and my mood isn't good either, so I'll fall out easily. Lastly, a friendly reminder, don't think of accepting the mission to see this person's true face. He's very cruel and never soft-hearted to everyone. He's a real killer." Han family young master said the last few words with gritted teeth, filled with resentment, and left without turning his head back. "What kind of person is this? He's too full of himself," Fiercely scolded. "Miss, it's not good to speak behind someone's back," someone said in the air. "Why is there someone else?" Fiercely stomped his feet angrily. "Quickly scram, you peeping Tom." Fiercely waved his fists and legs at the air. "Let's go, Fiercely." July came up and pulled Fiercely away. "Should we accept the mission, Sister July?" Luo asked. "Yes," July said decisively, "but we're not going to see his true face, but to see if there's anything we can help with." Chapter 56. Outside of Cloud City, Gu Fei had been wandering for an hour. After some thought, Gu Fei calculated that his PK value should be 15 points. As Brother Yu said, he would need to be online for 30 hours to clear it. During these 30 hours, he couldn't be caught by players who accepted the quest, or else he would have to go back to jail for another 15 hours. He emphasized that this would be a completely idle 15 hours. Since it was a holographic MRPG, players couldn't just hang up and watch a movie, so Gu Fei insisted on wandering in the wild. Gu Fei killed monsters along the way. Since he kept moving, he hadn't encountered any danger yet. There was only one time he heard voices in the distance, but for some reason, that group of people seemed to be fighting. It was probably 2 groups of enemies, so they didn't care about Gu Fei and donated themselves to the wanted list. But as time passed, Gu Fei gradually felt the pressure. Previously, a considerable number of players thought that Gu Fei would turn himself in, so they stayed in the wanted quest hall to wait for him. So there weren't many players hunting for Gu Fei. But after more than an hour, 27149 was still at the top of the list, and many people began to take action. A large number of guilds and mercenary groups began to officially participate in the hunt for Gu Fei, and a large number of players rushed to the same coordinates. Among them, the most influential was still the #1 guild in Cloud City, Unhindered World. The 3 core players, Unsworn Sword, Wind Star, and Reflection of Years, brought a large number of people to the outside of the city. A few minutes ago, Gu Fei had just disappeared from the coordinates, and the surroundings were full of players, searching in a certain direction. It's annoying to have so many people. Even if you can leave a trace, it's completely destroyed. Reflection of Years glanced at the busy players with disgust. How do we start? Unsworn Sword asked. Let's say he's a level 30 mage. His agility should be 30 plus 30 times 5, a total of 180 points. In addition, according to the forum, his equipment has Eddie's emblem, which adds 6 points to agility, a total of 186 points. Since the agility growth of a mage was not buffed or weakened, his maximum movement speed was 6.2 meters per second. Coupled with the light boots that could increase his movement speed by 5%, his final speed was 6.51 meters per second. If he ran at full speed to the next coordinate, then the next coordinate should be 1,953 meters away from here. The human eye can distinguish a distance of about 2,000 meters, so as long as our line of sight is not obstructed, we can basically see him, Reflection of Years said. Then what now? His coordinates are refreshed in 3 minutes and 47 seconds, and he's at most 1,477 meters away from here. Everyone, look in a direction where your line of sight won't be obstructed. Do you see anyone running? Everyone immediately began to look around. So the only route he chose is the Cloud Mist Forest or the Black Dragon Mountain Range. Time's Reflection pointed at the 2 areas in front of him. Then what do we do? Unsworn Sword asked. You guys can disband now, Reflection of Years said. What? Actually, he doesn't need to run at all. With his speed, most people can see him but can't catch up. Next, anyone who adds all their points to agility, follow me. Time's Reflection said. A few people stood out from the crowd. They were either thieves or archers. Oh, I forgot to say, they must be level 30, Time's Reflection said. Immediately, 2 more people left. Archers with more than 150 agility are also fine, Time's Reflection shouted. One person raised his hand and stood in the line. Time's Reflection looked at the 3 archers and 2 thieves in front of him and nodded. If we can catch this masked killer, it can only be our team. Let's go. Damn, we're done? Feng Xing was dumbfounded as he watched the 6 people quickly run towards Black Dragon Mountain. Time's Reflection is right. If that mage just keeps running, there's nothing we can do. Unsworn Sword touched his heavy armor. No, I can't take this lying down. I'll go take a look. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to step on him. Feng Xing clenched his fist and ran alone. Everyone, don't disperse. Unsworn Sword turned around and said to the other gang members, since we've already accepted the quest, let's split into groups of 5 and find a place to level up. If you see 27149, don't expose yourself. Just pretend you don't know. Call someone and surround him in the dark. Do you understand? Everyone nodded and dispersed. Time's Reflection led the 5 people running towards the side of the mountain. On the way, the coordinates refreshed again. They were indeed on Black Dragon Mountain. We're faster than him. As long as we don't get the wrong direction, we'll catch up to him soon, Time's Reflection said. The others nodded. The archer with 150 points of agility was already a few meters behind the 5 people in front. It seems like we don't need to bring him? The 4 people in front of them discussed. Time's Reflection smiled and said, one more person is always an extra bit of strength. Although he's a bit slower than us, he's still a match for that mage. He then turned around and waved at the archer. Follow me. The archer nodded. They quickly arrived at the newly refreshed coordinates. This was a fork in the mountain. Turning left would lead to Black Dragon Cave, and continuing straight would lead them to Black Dragon Mountain Range. No one knew where it would lead to. Which way? If he goes straight, then it'll be fine. If he goes straight, we'll catch up to him sooner or later. I don't think he'll choose this kind of less flexible path. He'll probably go to Black Dragon Cave. We'll go to Black Dragon Cave first. If the coordinates aren't right, we'll turn back and chase after him. Anyway, there are only two paths, Time's reflection said. What if he turns back? Someone said. Then he'll run into other people chasing after the coordinates. He can't be that stupid, right? The coordinates refreshed every 5 minutes, and he still dares to turn back? Time's reflection laughed. Let's go. Hurry up. They turned left and rushed to the road leading to Black Dragon Cave. They chased all the way to the entrance of the cave, but there was still no trace of Gu Fei. Time's reflection looked at the time and said lightly, if we're not going the wrong way, then he must have entered the cave. Black Dragon Cave's terrain is complex. It's a good choice to hide here and deal with the pursuers. He can also farm monsters and level up. However, he still underestimated the number of players chasing him. The players chasing him now are enough to easily massacre the entire Black Dragon Cave. If he goes in now, isn't it a dead end? Time's reflection said this, but his face was worried. It's just that this way, our team's speed advantage won't be of use. Then what do we do? Wait for the main group? Someone asked. Of course not. It wasn't easy for us to get such a big lead. Enter the cave. Time's reflection waved his hand, and they went into the cave. After moving forward for a while, the new coordinates refreshed again. Time's reflection looked at it and suddenly laughed. Brilliant. I only now understand this guy's intentions. What? Someone next to him asked. If we hadn't entered Black Dragon Cave one step ahead and followed the coordinates he left, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to find this guy again, Time's reflection said. Why? Inside the game cave and outside the cave belong to two different maps. Each has its own coordinates, but when the coordinates were displayed, they weren't marked. It should be considered a mistake. Those who are still outside the cave, look at these coordinates and search all over Black Dragon Mountain. I guarantee that they won't find anything. Time's reflection laughed. This guy must have let his guard down. Everyone hurry up. Time's reflection said. The 6 people began to walk towards the depths of the cave according to the coordinates that had just refreshed. Taking a step further, he discovered that most of the monsters along the way had already been cleared by Gu Fei. Time's reflection was overjoyed. As expected, he's acting like nothing happened and started to farm monsters to level up. It won't be long before we catch up. Everyone, get ready for battle. Hee hee, isn't it the same as pointing out a path for us by clearing monsters so cleanly? After the 6 people caught up to the coordinates that Gu Fei had left, they continued in the direction of clearing monsters. At this time, the coordinates refreshed again. Time's reflection looked at it and was stunned. What's wrong? Hurry up and continue moving. These coordinates aren't right, Time's reflection said. What's wrong? These coordinates are too far from the previous one. There are still traces of him killing monsters along the way. How could he have gone so far while clearing monsters? Time's reflection said. Then what's going on? There's another floor in Black Dragon Cave, Time's reflection said. Really? How do we go? Everyone asked. These guys had never come here to level up. I don't know. I've never heard of it. Time's reflection frowned. Let's go along the path first. There shouldn't be any mistake with the traces he left behind, right? Someone suggested. The corpses of the monsters on the ground undoubtedly pointed out the direction in which Gu Fei was heading. That's the only way. Time's reflection led everyone forward until they completely lost track of him. Could it be that the passage to the other floor is nearby? Everyone look around. Time's reflection said. Everyone scattered in all directions. One person quickly found something and shouted excitedly, "There's a secret passage here." What? Time's reflection, who was searching in another direction, immediately rushed over. Opening the iron plate, there was a passage that was as tall as a person. Thief, lurk down and take a look. Time's reflection instructed. A thief lurked down the passage and sent a message a moment later. That's right. These are the coordinates from just now. It's here. This guy went from here. Hurry up and chase. Time's reflection jumped down the passage, and the others followed one after another. Ah. When it was the last person's turn, there was a sudden scream. What's going on? The people in the tunnel were shocked. What answered them was a heavy iron plate covering the ground. Not good. The 5 people in the cave were shocked and rushed to the entrance. Sure enough, the exit had been covered again. When they pushed hard, they could feel that it was locked. We've been tricked. Time's reflection was dumbfounded. Chapter 57. The reflection of years only knew that he had been tricked, but he couldn't figure out when it started. Did the other party enter the Black Dragon cave and discover that there were pursuers behind him, so he came up with this ruse? Or did he intentionally lead them in this direction from the beginning? Can't push it open? The reflection of years asked. The thief who had already given up on trying nodded his head sadly. Who didn't come in? The reflection of years looked at the 4 people in the cave. Yutian. Yutian didn't come in, one person replied. Looks like he was killed by the other party's sneak attack. The reflection of years sighed deeply. He already has 15 PK points, and he's still killing people. One person was surprised. He already has 15 points, so he doesn't care if it's 1 more or 1 less point. The reflection of years said. That's not right. Yutian is still level 30 in the guild. He didn't die. One person had a new discovery. Quick, message him. A few people shouted. I'm not dead yet. He slashed me once, locked this iron plate and ran away. Yutian Shinming replied. Lock? Yeah, there's a lock at the entrance of the tunnel. He locked it. How do we open it? Yutian Shinming asked. That guy can open this secret tunnel. He has the key. Hurry and call people to chase him. The reflection of years shouted. At the same time, he frantically spread the news that Gu Fei was in the Black Dragon cave in the guild channel. At this time, Gu Fei and Yutian Shinming had already walked out of the Black Dragon cave side by side. Your last wasn't good, Gu Fei said. Really? I also felt that I wanted to laugh too much at that time. My almost turned into a Do you think it's easy for me? Yutian Shinming said. The two quickly walked down the mountain road, and a few figures appeared at the intersection ahead. How was it? Brother, you greeted them and asked. Of course it was okay. Yutian Shinming was immensely proud of himself. That reflection year's brat wants to play with me? He's still far from it. The Han family young master sneered and turned to question Gu Fei with a dark face. Why didn't you follow the coordinates I set? Nonsense. The coordinates you set up are either a big pit or a stone spike. Is that even a place to stand? Are you trying to kill me on purpose? Gu Fei retorted. Okay, there's no more time. Let's move on to the next step, Sword Demon said. At the mention of the next step, Gu Fei's eyes became a little teary. Can we not go? No, we have to go, Han family young master said firmly. Hey, are you trying to mess with me again? Gu Fei expressed his suspicion. Han family young master said coldly, this is definitely the best plan. Once you get rid of those who are following you closely, you can just follow this path and run along the Black Dragon mountain range. No one will be able to catch up to you. How long until the coordinates refresh? Brother, you asked. 9 seconds. Gu Fei said. Let's go. Brother, you patted him. Good luck. Sword Demon came up and patted him. You can do it. Yutian Shinming came up and patted him. Unscathed in battle didn't say anything, but nodded his head vigorously. Get lost. Han family young master looked annoyed when he saw Gu Fei. Let's go. When Gu Fei saw the new coordinates, he immediately turned around and ran. We won't meet anyone on the way, right? Yutian Shinming mumbled. Absolutely not. Han family young master said confidently. According to the last coordinates he left in the Black Dragon Mountain cave, those who are looking for him are all on the other side of the Black Dragon Mountain range. If they want to reach our location now, it will take them at least 10 minutes. That's not right. Yutian Shinming suddenly shouted. Why do they need 10 minutes? Qianli will refresh the coordinates in 5 minutes. And, after running for 5 minutes, they will find the new coordinates, so they will rush to the new coordinates. It will take them 12 minutes. Han family young master said. Yutian Shinming was dumbfounded. Then what about the third coordinate? Han family young master said with a painful expression. If they don't insist on reaching the second coordinate and change their route after receiving the third coordinate, they will find that they have nowhere to go after 4 minutes. Then they can only turn back. But at this time, Qianli will refresh the coordinates for the 4th times. That's right. Han family young master nodded, but they still have to return to the 2nd coordinate before they can continue the chase. How much time has been wasted? Even I can't keep track of it. I deeply admire them for continuing the chase at this point. That's terrible. Yutian Shenming sighed. There's something worse. Han family young master raised his thumb and pointed behind him without turning his head. Those guys took these coordinates and went to the Black Dragon Mountain range to search? Oh God, you won't blame me for going too far, right? They turned back and saw that reigning the 4 seas had gathered a large group of people and were rushing here along the mountain road under the leadership of Sword of No Oath. Oh, I still need to bring them to save the reflection of time in the secret passage. Yutian Shenming suddenly remembered. Do you have the key? Brother, you asked. Yutian Shenming said. Where's the key? Everyone asked. In the secret passage. Yutian Shenming replied. In the secret passage? Everyone was puzzled. Yes, Qianli said he threw it in the secret passage. Yutian Shenming said. Then how are we going to save them? Only the honest sword demon was still thinking about this problem. I don't know. I just wanted to ask. I don't think I can remember how to get to the secret passage. Yutian Shenming said and waved at the 4. I'm going. Saying that, he turned and rushed down the mountain road, shouting as he ran, Boss. Not good, the reflection and the others are trapped in the tunnel. Let's go too? The 4 began to go down the mountain road. Where does that path lead to? Brother, you asked. When Qianli comes back you'll know. Han family young master said lightly. Can Qianli stand it if he doesn't go offline for 30 hours? I think he usually plays for 3 to 4 hours. Brother, you said. That's his problem. Han family young master said. There shouldn't be a problem. Brother, you said. No problem. Sword demon said with certainty. Unscathed in battle nodded. Before Qianli comes back, the mercenary group won't take on any missions. Everyone go do your own things. Han family young master waved his hand. At this time, Gu Fei was walking quickly in the Black Dragon Mountain range. The mountain road was very wide. On the left was a mountain wall and on the right was a cliff. The road in front and behind him was hidden in a cloud and fog. There were no monsters to kill along the way. This road was very boring. Gu Fei could only speed up and hope that a leveling area would appear in front of him. An hour later, there was news from Cloud City. Players returned to Cloud City in groups and announced that they had given up on the hunting mission. Many people also suffered from temporary sequelae. Whenever they heard the location indicated by numbers, they would immediately go into a state of dementia. Those with serious symptoms would go crazy when they heard Table 7 or Table 8 in the tavern. What was even worse was that even after searching the 4 seas and turning the Black Dragon Cave upside down, they still could not find a trace of Gu Fei. The entire guild was at a loss when faced with a rusty lock. Trapped in the tunnel, Reflected Years and the 4 full agility warriors finally decided to find the other end of the unknown path. In the end, they found the bedroom of the bandit boss, Su. The most depressing thing was that while Reflected Years and the 4 full agility warriors were sent back to the living area by Su, Unsworn Sword announced in the guild channel, the small blue monster guarding the entrance of the secret tunnel has spawned and has been successfully dealt with. The key has been obtained. The tunnel will be opened immediately. And the small group of people searching for Gu Fei in the depths of the Black Dragon Cave were extinguished by the minions who heard Suitu's whistle. When Reigning Years and the 4 full agility warriors came out of the Black Dragon Cave, they were covered in wounds, both physically and mentally. Walking on the lonely mountain road, Gu Fei relied on the messages sent by the mercenaries to kill time. Suddenly, he saw a figure in the clouds in front of him. We've been walking for so long. Finally met a monster. Gu Fei was excited. He stretched his arms and legs, pulled out the fire baptism from his pocket and rushed forward. As the distance closed, Gu Fei gradually saw it more clearly. He didn't recognize the person, but the sack on the person's back was unexpectedly familiar. After further analysis, Gu Fei took off the black cloth covering his face. Little Rain, Gu Fei called out tentatively. The sack warrior turned around. Who else could it be but Little Rain? Qianli. Little Rain was also very surprised. What are you doing here? Doing a quest? Yes, a quest, a quest. Gu Fei nodded while wiping his sweat. He was still thinking about how to answer Little Rain when she asked him why he was here. He didn't expect the girl to help him think of an answer. Oh, are you going to Luminous Village? Little Rain asked. Gu Fei replied casually, but in his heart he was wondering what kind of place this was. That's great, me too. Little Rain said. Really? That's great. Gu Fei said. Let's go together? Little Rain said. Of course. Gu Fei replied. What quest are you doing? Little Rain asked. Oh, Eddie's quest. Gu Fei replied casually. What quest is that? Little Rain asked. It's a chain quest. Gu Fei replied. A chain quest? Little Rain exclaimed. You received a chain quest. I received it by chance. Gu Fei said. I'll help you. Little Rain said. I don't know how to continue. I'm just going to give it a try. Gu Fei said. Of course, it's a chain quest. It's not that easy to complete. But don't worry, with my help, you'll definitely succeed. I'm a quest expert, Little Rain said while patting her chest. Chapter 58. Since Xiao Yu claimed to be a mission expert, Gu Fei simply asked her for advice. Do you know what Eddie's mission is? This is a chain of missions. It's different every time. How would I know? You're so stupid, Xiao Yu said. Gu Fei felt wronged. He was actually called stupid by this silly girl. Was there anything more wronged in this world? But I know a mission called Trapped Eddie. I don't know if it has anything to do with you, Xiao Yu said. Tell me. Gu Fei said. The wandering warrior Eddie was attacked by bandits when he passed by Black Dragon Mountain. He was imprisoned by the bandit leader Suo. Find a way to save him. Xiao Yu recited. You took this mission? Gu Fei said. No, I've heard people talk about it, but no one has completed it because they don't know where Eddie is locked up. Xiao Yu said. He's in Su's house. Gu Fei blurted out. How do you know? Xiao Yu asked. The Eddie in my mission is the one you're talking about. How could I not know where he is? Gu Fei said. Information, I have to write it down quickly. Xiao Yu suddenly threw the sack on the ground and took out a small notebook and a quill from her pocket. Gu Fei moved closer to take a look. Xiao Yu was writing in the notebook, Eddie is in Suoru's house. Su's house? Is that his bedroom? Xiao Yu suddenly turned her head and asked Gu Fei. This? Probably. Gu Fei replied. Why would he lock Eddie in his own bedroom? Xiao Yu thought. Could it be that there is a secret between them? Oh, it's possible. Gu Fei said. Brokeback Mountain? Xiao Yu said. Maybe. Do you think so too? Xiao Yu was very happy. Gu Fei was speechless. Then he saw Xiao Yu seriously write another line behind Eddie's information. An affair with Su. But let's keep going. After Xiao Yu finished writing, she put away her pen and paper and picked up the sack. What's in the sack? Gu Fei patted it. Food, Xiao Yu said. Food? Gu Fei was confused. I don't know how long it will take to reach Luminous Village. I was afraid that I would get hungry on the way, so I brought some food. Xiao Yu said. Staying in the game for more than 10 hours without logging off would indeed make one feel hungry, but this hunger was definitely a real feeling. It was caused by not eating for more than 10 hours in the game. Eating in the game wouldn't solve any problems. The food in the game could restore HP or stamina while it was still. Taking a step back, even if it was useful, there was no need to fill a sack. With a sack of food, Gu Fei reckoned that it would be enough to last him through the long journey. He didn't believe that the Luminous Village was as far as 25,000 Qianli. It's not just food. And water. Are you thirsty? After Xiao Yu heard Gu Fei's question, she immediately responded. She put down the sack and wanted to fetch water for Gu Fei. No need, I'm not thirsty. Gu Fei hurriedly stopped her. The two walked for another hour in the blink of an eye, and the few sentences they could talk about were all used up. Talking to Xiao Yu was more tiring. For example, telling a joke required 3 minutes of time for her to react. In these 3 minutes, Gu Fei had already forgotten the meaning of telling a joke. In turn, The jokes Xiao Yu told to Gu Fei were the kind of things that Gu Fei didn't think were worth laughing at. For example, I have a friend who walked into a tree one day, Xiao Yu laughed so hard that the sky fell and the earth cracked. Gu Fei could only force a smile to the side. But no matter what, when there was a companion beside him, no matter how long the journey was, he wouldn't feel too tired. Because when he saw someone beside him doing the same thing, he would know that no matter how stupid it was, he wasn't the only idiot. This was a kind of comfort. Under the perseverance of the two, the Black Dragon Mountain range was finally left behind. In front of him, a large plain, wasteland, hills, and forest appeared like the outside of Cloud City. Gu Fei looked at the time. It took them 3 hours to cross the Black Dragon Mountain range. Of course, after discovering that no one would be chasing behind him, and with Xiao Yu by his side, Gu Fei was no longer running like crazy. The two were walking at a uniform speed in a straight line. What made Gu Fei even more gratified was that there were finally NPC monsters in front of him. In the plan with the Han family young master and the others, Gu Fei was arranged to run to such a remote place with monsters for 30 hours. After clearing his PK points, he would return to Cloud City. He originally thought that there would be monsters in the Black Dragon Mountain range, but who knew that there would only be clouds and fog along the way. In this misty environment, there was a girl by his side, but unfortunately, this girl called him brother, so he couldn't find that kind of romantic beauty. So, thinking back on these 3 hours, it would be a crime to say that it was a waste. Gu Fei's hands were already itching, so he rushed up and pulled out a knife to stab the monster. The monster was instantly killed. With Gu Fei's attack power, without any enchantments, the monster was instantly killed. It was obvious what level the monster was. That's not right, Gu Fei muttered to himself. According to the basic thinking of online games, the further away from a big city like Cloud City, the higher the leveling area. He spent 3 hours to cross the Black Dragon Mountain range, but in the end, he ended up in this kind of place. This was too sad. The monsters' levels here are so low, Gu Fei said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu didn't seem to hear Gu Fei's words. She gazed into the distance and muttered, "Where is Luminous Village? Do you know?" Xiao Yu turned her head to ask Gu Fei. "I'll help you ask." Gu Fei was impressed by her courage to spend 3 hours crossing the Black Dragon Mountain range without knowing where she was going, so he decided to help her ask. Gu Fei opened up his friends list. There was an information king here that was even more of an information king than Brother Yu, Hongchen Yixiao. "Are you there? I want to ask you something." Gu Fei said, "I'm a self-disciplined gamer." Hongchen Yixiao said. "Automatic reply?" Gu Fei asked. "No, then why do you say this every time?" Gu Fei said. "Because you know my true identity." Hongchen Yixiao said. "That's because you exposed yourself. Then shouldn't you be silenced? What do you want to ask?" "If I can tell you, I'll tell you," Hongchen Yixiao said. "Oh, I want to ask you how to get to Luminous Village. I'm just pointing the way. There's nothing you can't say, right?" Gu Fei said. "Yo, you found a clue to your quest chain?" Hongchen Yixiao said. What clue?" Gu Fei was confused. "I didn't say anything," Hongchen Yixiao said. "How to get to Luminous Village? You can't even say that? That's a bit far. First, you have to cross the Black Dragon Mountain range." Hongchen Yixiao replied. "I've already crossed it." "Ah, it must have been hard on you to run that far," Hongchen Yixiao said. "What should I do next?" Gu Fei asked. "Next? I'll know when I see someone. The players over there should know," Hongchen Yixiao said. "Players? Are there players here?" Gu Fei looked around. There was no one. "You just crossed the mountain range, right? That place is still quite far from the main city. If you continue northwest, you'll reach the main city, Moonlit City. The players here should know how to get to Luminous Village." Hongchen Yixiao said. "It's so far from the main city, but why are the monsters' levels so low?" Gu Fei asked. "Embellishment, it's all embellishment. Who would come here for no reason?" Hongchen Yixiao said. "Alright, thank you," Gu Fei said. "No problem. However, there's something I want to remind you of," Hongchen Yixiao said. "What?" Gu Fei asked. "The bounty quest is a server-wide bounty. In other words, Moonlit City's players can also see 27149 on the bounty quest board. However, because you'll be marked as a player from Cloud City, no one should be able to claim it. However, I can't guarantee that, right? So be careful. Hongchen Yixiao said. Isn't this against the rules? Gu Fei said. This isn't against the rules. Anyone who has seriously looked at the bounty quest description would know. Just think of me as a serious player. Hongchen Yixiao said. Thanks. When we get back to Cloud City, I'll treat you to a drink. Gu Fei said. You're welcome. That's enough, I'm in a hurry. Gu Fei closed the chat window. Fuck, I spilled the beans. Hongchen Yixiao, who was in Cloud City, muttered to himself. He hadn't stopped paying attention to Gu Fei. Yesterday's scene of Qianli chasing after Non-Smiler in a drunken stupor had made his blood boil. In addition, he had been paying attention to the progress of Gu Fei's quest chain. The quest chain was one of the highlights of the parallel world. From the design to the arrangement to the synthesis, who knew how many brain cells the designer had used? It was the proud work of Hongchen Yixiao's design team. Even they themselves were excited every time they thought of the possible plots in the quest chain. After knowing that Gu Fei had received a quest chain, Hongchen Yixiao immediately looked through the data and memorized the randomly generated quest chain. However, the true owner of the quest chain, Gu Fei, didn't do anything about it. It felt as if he had created a perfect piece of art that no one could appreciate. This made Hongchen Yixiao anxious. When he heard Gu Fei ask about Luminous Village, he immediately thought that Gu Fei had found a clue. But that wasn't the case at all. His mouth was too quick and he gave the information to him. When he thought about it now, he was depressed. He could only hope that Gu Fei didn't notice. But how could Gu Fei not notice? He was thinking about what he said as he walked towards Moonlit Night City with Xiaoyu. Chapter 59. As soon as Gu Fei mentioned Luminous Village, Hongchen Yixiao immediately said that he had found some clues. There was no doubt that Eddie's mission would be a major breakthrough in the Luminous Village quest chain. Gu Fei had always guessed that the key to this quest was to first figure out what Eddie's mission was. Only then would it be convenient for him to continue the next step. Now it seemed that there should be clues left in Luminous Village. Perhaps this was a stop that Eddie had passed through before, or perhaps he was a resident of Luminous Village. This kind of information shouldn't be difficult to dig up. Once he arrived at Luminous Village, he should be able to find something by asking the NPCs one by one. Gu Fei thought as he continued walking with Xiaoyu. Gradually, they could see the silhouette of Moonlight City in the distance. Compared to Cloud City, there was no significant difference. Xiaoyu pointed at the city and said dumbfoundedly, "What a big village." Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This isn't Luminous Village. This is Moonlight City. Like Cloud City, it is also a main city. Luminous Village should be nearby. I'll probably know if I ask someone. Gu Fei looked around. He could see a few players fighting monsters here and there. This probably wasn't a lively leveling area. That was why there were so few people who chose to level here. Gu Fei chose a target and walked over with Xiaoyu. This person looked like a thief. He ran across the mountains at a brisk pace. Most of the time, he didn't fight when he encountered an enemy. Instead, he chose to go around them. From time to time, he would crouch on the ground and search for something. Gu Fei and Xiaoyu caught up to this person and called out to him. "Friend, how should I address you?" Gu Fei greeted. "Master Kong." The person looked at the two of them and answered. "Haha, Master Kong, instant noodles?" Xiaoyu laughed. For her, this kind of joke was just right. The name Fireball had some depth for her. The other party looked displeased and said unhappily, "It's not like I was the one who chose this name." When Gu Fei heard this, he immediately felt a bit more friendly. He was also a victim of unsatisfactory accounts. After stopping Xiaoyu's laughter, he continued to ask, "We want to go to Luminous Village. Can you tell us how to get there?" Kong Shifu looked at the two of them up and down in surprise, and then said, "You can't identify them? Your levels are higher than mine." "Level 30? The two of them nodded. "Level 30? Do you know how to get to Luminous Village?" Master Kong suddenly had a whole new level of respect for these two players. "You've misunderstood. We're not from Moonlit Night City. We're from Cloud City." Gu Fei pointed in the direction of Cloud City and quickly explained. Kong Shifu's eyes lit up. Cloud City? Another main city? Can I walk this way? How did he leave? How long? Just follow the main road of the Black Dragon Mountain Range. We walked for about 3 hours, so we didn't walk very fast. Gu Fei said. Come. Let me ask you. Kong Shifu pulled Gu Fei in front of him. In your Cloud City, is there a green plant with pink or rose red flowers and leaves this big? Kong Shifu said as he gestured with his hands. Gu Fei immediately shook his head. Think carefully. Kong Shifu's face was full of anticipation. Green plants with pink or rose red flowers. These kinds of plants are common, but how could the leaves be this big? I've never seen it before. Gu Fei mimicked him and gestured. The leaves that Kong Shifu gestured were extremely exaggerated. Gu Fei guessed that a plant with such big leaves would be as tall as a person. It wouldn't be appropriate to call it a flower or a grass, it would at least be a small tree. He had never seen it in the game. What kind of plant is this? Xiao Yu asked curiously. It's nothing. I'm an apothecary, just looking for some ingredients. Are you apothecaries? If not, you wouldn't know. Kong Shifu said. The two were relieved. Gu Fei didn't know much about life professions. He only knew that there were 5 main categories: chef, blacksmith, tailor, apothecary, and alchemist. Chef made food, blacksmith made weapons, tailor made clothes, apothecary researched medicine, and alchemist made staff-like weapons and accessories. If you have the chance, you should go look for it in Cloud City. The two of us don't know anything, so we can't be sure. Gu Fei said. Kong Shifu nodded, but his face was full of worry. It seems like Cloud City isn't far from here, but I heard that Cloud City isn't safe. It's very dangerous. How is it dangerous? Gu Fei didn't understand. I heard that the server's #1 Killer King is in Cloud City. He killed 15 PK points in one day. He chased a player inside and outside the city and killed them until they dropped 8 levels. No one dared to stop him. It's too scary. Kong Shifu said. Gu Fei could only smile bitterly. Xiao Yu was unhappy. What are you talking about? Do you know what kind of person he killed? He's a big bad liar. Kong Shifu nodded. I heard that too. Damn, he's so ruthless. This guy must have been tricked by that liar. Gu Fei was about to faint. How did the words become like this after passing through Black Dragon Mountain Range? Logically speaking, the information in the game should have been circulated on the internet forums and the like. Everyone had the same place to gossip, so how could there be such a big deviation? Gu Fei just forgot one fact for a moment. In the current game, although the players were divided into different areas because of the main city they were born in, the relationship between people wouldn't be broken because of this. When 2 friends entered the game together, it was rare for them to be randomly born in the same main city. But even if they were separated by 10 Black Dragon Mountain Range, it wouldn't stop them from exchanging messages. Compared to the information they read on the internet, most people would think that the words of their friends in Cloud City were more reliable. How could something that was transmitted orally through subjective consciousness not be distorted? Of course, right now wasn't the time for Gu Fei to argue with others. He had chatted with Kong Shifu for a long time and he still hadn't told him how to get to Luminous Village. Alright, I'm just looking for some herbs anyway. It doesn't matter which way we go, I'll take you there. Kong Shifu said generously. Thank you very much. Gu Fei said. The 3 of them opened the way, and Kong Shifu walked in front, bending down from time to time to pull out a few stalks of grass. Gradually, the 3 of them walked into a popular leveling area. There were more and more players around, and the ratio of people to monsters was comparable to the infamous Cloud Farm outside of Cloud City. But the rules of the players here were different. Cloud Farm was a bad style with unwritten rules, while Moonlit City was a very bold and open robbery. Along the way, Gu Fei saw many players pick up a piece of rag with a bamboo stick, draw something that looked like a ghost on it, and then stick it into the ground and yell, "This area is ours, whoever comes over will die." Those who could yell this slogan were those who had the advantage of numbers. But this wasn't necessarily safe, and it was very likely that another group would come over. Seeing that this area was quite fertile, they took a step forward, pulled out a flag, and threw it to the side to show their intentions. The two sides immediately faced off. Because leveling up wasn't easy, Gu Fei found that people weren't willing to fight to the death. Usually, they would send a few people out to fight one-on-one, and they would also stop when the time was right. This way, the number of bleeding and losing levels was much lower than in Cloud Farm. Of course, this was also a method used when two strong parties collided. If you single-handedly pulled out the other party's flag, of course you would die a horrible death. Gu Fei noticed that Kong Shifu, who was leading the way, was not very active after entering this area. He walked with his head down, and didn't even look at the NPCs in the leveling area. Clearly, he was very familiar with the atmosphere here. This guy could really be called a native of Moonlit City. It wasn't until they were far away from the area that he let out a sigh of relief, turned around, and said to the two of them as if he was very familiar with the local customs, "I forgot to remind you before, I was really afraid that you two would accidentally cause trouble." Gu Fei thought of something and asked, "If we die here, do we resurrect in Cloud City? Or do we resurrect in Moonlit City?" "I don't know about that," said Kong Shifu, pointing to the front. "That's Luminous Village." "Thank you so much," said Gu Fei hurriedly. "Do you want to go? I'll buy you a drink." Gu Fei could already see the entrance of Luminous Village from afar. There was a tavern at the head of the village. "No need, I don't drink," said Kong Shifu with a wave of his hand. "I'm leaving. You can find me if you need anything. Call me when you return to Cloud City. I'll go with you if it's okay." "No problem." After the two added each other as friends, Kong Shifu went to the side of the forest to pull weeds. Gu Fei and Xiao Yu stepped into Luminous Village. This village was located in the middle of a forest, and it seemed as if you couldn't see the sun if you raised your head. A strange atmosphere pervaded the air, making it seem like the birthplace of a great quest chain. "Xiao Yu, what's your quest?" Gu Fei first took care of the simple quest. "Find Mr. Adrian and extract some valuable gold." Xiao Yu read out her quest. "Oh, then I'll do it for you first," said Gu Fei. As they spoke, the two stepped into the tavern. Quests in the game weren't too different from RPG quests. Taverns were always a good place to get information. "Boss, do you know who Mr. Adrian is?" Xiao Yu asked with great familiarity. "Oh, Mr. Adrian is the wealthiest person in our village. He lives in the east side of the village next to the church, that big house." The tavern owner said, "Thank you, boss." Xiao Yu was very polite to the robot because the hidden quest in her heart would never be extinguished. After Xiao Yu finished asking, Gu Fei immediately followed and asked, "Boss, do you know who Eddie is?" "Mister, you must be tired from the long journey. Would you like a drink to relieve your boredom?" "Gu Fei." Xiao Yu pulled Gu Fei away with great familiarity. "He doesn't know." On the way to the east side of the village, Gu Fei asked quite a few passers-by, but still no one paid any attention to him. What's going on? Gu Fei thought for a moment and realized where the problem lay. Eddie's coat of arms. This was Eddie's relic, and he had put it in his pocket instead of wearing it. Perhaps this was a part of the quest chain. If he didn't wear it, the NPCs would obviously treat him as a normal person talking nonsense. As he thought of this, Gu Fei quietly put on the coat of arms. In an instant, Gu Fei suddenly felt as if countless eyes were staring at him. Gu Fei composed himself and walked towards the fifth passerby. Chapter 60. Gu Fei had been paying close attention to his surroundings. There were no players at all. Only then did he put on Eddie's coat of arms. The only ones who noticed him were the NPCs in the village, including the passers-by he had asked earlier. This made Gu Fei even more certain that the coat of arms was a key. He calmed himself down and walked towards an NPC who was staring at him. In the end, before Gu Fei could even get close, the NPC actually walked away on his own. Judging by his expression, he seemed to be carefully avoiding contact with Gu Fei. Gu Fei did not believe it and quickened his pace to chase after him. The NPC did not seem to have an acceleration setting, so Gu Fei caught up with him in a few steps. Gu Fei blocked the NPC's path and wanted to speak, but the NPC stubbornly avoided eye contact and turned away. "That's weird." Xiao Yu found the scene interesting and caught up with the NPC in a few steps. "Do you know where Mr. Adrian is?" Mr. Adrian is the richest person in our village. He lives in the big house next to the church at the east end of the village. Facing Xiao Yu, the NPC not only smiled warmly but also gave her accurate information. What's going on? Why is he ignoring you? Xiao Yu scratched her head. That's probably the plot of my quest, said Gu Fei as he pondered. The NPCs in the parallel world did not have the true intelligence of humans. They were still robots that followed the programming. The guy in front of him would always respond to any of Xiao Yu's questions, regardless of whether he could answer them or not. But when it came to Xiao Yu, no matter if she talked to him or even pulled him, there was only one reaction: turn around and try to avoid her. This was a message to Gu Fei: these NPCs are avoiding him. Gu Fei paid attention again and realized that he was no longer pestering the NPC. After walking a certain distance away, he stopped and then maintained a vigilant peeping look at Gu Fei. Gu Fei looked around and found that all the NPCs who were paying attention to him had the same expression. However, among them, there were also some NPCs who looked at him the same as before. They didn't change even though he was wearing the emblem. With a thought, Gu Fei found a guy who didn't pay attention to him. Sure enough, this person didn't avoid him. When Gu Fei came to his side, he looked up at Gu Fei. Do you know who Eddie is? Gu Fei asked. I don't know. You should ask the village chief. He should know more, the NPC replied. Gu Fei was stunned. He then found another passerby with the same style and got the same answer. Who's the village chief? Gu Fei asked. Edwin is our village chief. He lives in a small wooden house outside the forest over there, the NPC replied as he gestured with his hand. Ah, I got it. That's how quests are. As long as you ask every NPC, someone will know the answer, Little Rain lectured Gu Fei with great experience. Although it was a stupid idea, he had to admit that it was a good idea. Gu Fei noticed the different attitudes of the NPCs and asked for the answer. If Little Rain ignored it and swept through them one by one, she could also get the answer. That was because the NPCs who had different attitudes towards Gu Fei were evenly divided. As for why, it was probably a key to this quest. Gu Fei couldn't think of a reason at the moment. He could only follow the NPC's instructions and find the village chief in the small wooden house beside the forest. He knocked on the door of the small wooden house and saw an old man with white hair and a beard. In the game's design philosophy, being young and promising seemed to be reserved for the protagonist. As a result, it was a bizarre thing for an old man to save the world. In games, the old were always old-fashioned, stubborn, cowardly, and ignorant. Occasionally, one or two wise ones would appear, but they wouldn't live long. After making one last contribution to the plot, they would burn out their lives and turn into the fighting spirit of the protagonist. This was a common pattern in games. Village Chief, do you know someone called Eddie? Gu Fei asked expectantly. He suddenly realized that doing quests was also a very exciting thing. It was this sense of anticipation that came with it. Eddie? He was a very good young man. He promised to help our village, the village chief said. He's already dead, Gu Fei said with great pain. The village chief was startled. What should we do? Is there anything I can help you with? Gu Fei followed the script. For you? The village chief asked. Gu Fei didn't know how to answer and could only speak with facts. Eddie asked me to help. The village chief's eyes immediately lit up. Are you the warrior that Eddie found who can defeat the monster? Monster. Warrior. They all sounded very powerful. Gu Fei couldn't help but wonder if he, who was only level 30, could handle it. However, the village chief's question seemed to be a choice of whether or not to continue the quest. No matter what, he couldn't just stop the quest like this. Gu Fei said and nodded with some embarrassment. I am. Welcome, warrior. The NPC was indeed amazing. He quickly walked out of the shadow of Eddie's death. What monster are you talking about? Gu Fei began to ask for information. If this monster was a close combat type and wasn't that much faster than him, Gu Fei felt that he could still deal with it. Moreover, this was a game. Monsters were made for players to kill, so they couldn't be so strong that they couldn't be controlled. Follow me. The village chief walked out of the door and started walking with his body hunched. Gu Fei and Little Rain followed behind, hating the village chief for walking so slowly. On the other hand, Little Rain was excited, not knowing who this quest belonged to. Leading the two, the village chief arrived at the Church of Luminous Village. The main door of the church had been in disrepair for many years. Half of it had already fallen off the door frame and drooped weakly. The stone path in front of the door had also been abandoned for a long time. Weeds grew between the stone slabs. The village chief led the two onto the stone path. Halfway there, he stopped and looked down at the ground. The village chief hit the ground with his walking stick, Murphy's blood. No matter how many years of rain it takes, it won't be able to wash it away. Gu Fei and Xiaoyu looked down and saw that there was a black mark on the stone slab that the village chief had hit. According to the village chief, this was blood. "What's going on?" Gu Fei asked. "It's a werewolf." The village chief said, "A werewolf is hiding in our village." Werewolf? Gu Fei muttered to himself. This was a very cliché race in Western legends. They were usually human, but on the night of the full moon, they would reveal their true form. They would lose consciousness and become extremely savage and violent. What was even worse was that it was said that when a werewolf revealed its true form, its attack and agility would greatly increase. If it was such an extremely fast creature, then it would be difficult to deal with. While Gu Fei was pondering, the village chief was rambling on about the legend of the werewolf. Little Rain listened very seriously and once again took out his little notebook to quickly record. Gu Fei's thoughts were always faster than the village chief's words. When he finished thinking, he heard the village chief say, "Legend has it that werewolves are afraid of everything made of silver. Warrior, do you have a weapon made of silver?" Gu Fei replied, "Don't worry, I've already prepared. Give me your weapon. I can help you coat it with a layer of silver." The village chief said, "Can I do it later? I want to find clues about the werewolf first." Gu Fei said, "If you need it, you can find me at any time." After the village chief said this, he trembled as he left the church. "Why don't you let him coat your weapon with silver?" Little Rain asked. "I think I should get a knife or a sword and let him coat it with silver. I'm afraid the staff won't be able to inflict a fatal wound on the werewolf." Gu Fei took out the staff for Little Rain to see and showed her the staff's lack of sharpness. Little Rain nodded and said, "Do you want to use my axe?" "I don't think I can carry it," Gu Fei said. Although the game said that equipment didn't have class or attribute requirements, it was just that the requirements weren't stated in the form of data. For example, Little Rain's giant axe. According to the game, a mage can use it, but if you don't have enough strength to carry it, then it's not our problem. It's equivalent to a disguised attribute requirement. Moreover, we don't know what the specific requirements are, it's very abnormal. "Oh, then let's go buy a weapon that you can carry," Little Rain said. "I'll go by myself. Don't you want to find the person in that house to get some gold or?" "You go, I'll buy it and find you there," Gu Fei said. "All right then," Little Rain agreed. "See you in a bit." She waved her hand and walked towards the big house next to the church. Gu Fei hurriedly sprinted all the way and caught up to the village chief who was still halfway there. He took out the baptism of flames. "Village chief, help me coat this knife with silver." Although Gu Fei suspected that with Little Rain's carelessness, she wouldn't notice that the baptism of flames was the weapon used by the masked assassin yesterday. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. The village chief didn't say anything else and took the baptism of flames. He then took out a small cup from his bosom and poured some silver liquid onto the knife. He muttered an incantation and then with a flash of silver light, the color of the baptism of flames didn't change. However, there was a faint silver line on the edge of the knife. Upon closer inspection, it was hard to tell where it was. "Brave warrior, I'll leave it to you." The village chief returned the baptism of flames to Gu Fei. Gu Fei looked up and saw that the name of the baptism of flames had been changed to Holy Baptism of Flames. Apart from the 30% chance of using fire magic, there was another attribute: prevent regeneration. Chapter 61. Prevent regeneration? Gu Fei pondered over the effects of this new stat. Werewolves were commonly seen in myths and legends. The game's design probably couldn't escape this category. He had never heard of werewolves having the ability to revive after death. Preventing regeneration shouldn't be a counter to this ability. Excluding this possibility, it probably meant that werewolves had very strong wound healing abilities. In game terms, it was HP regeneration. In the game, bosses with HP regeneration abilities were often seen. "You can't even recover as much HP in a second" was the best description for this type of boss. Gu Fei reckoned that this prevent regeneration ability in his hand was probably this type of ability. After saying goodbye to the village chief, Gu Fei went back to find Xiaoyu. The door to the richest man's room was wide open. Gu Fei looked inside but didn't see anyone. After sending Xiaoyu a text, he hurriedly went to the backyard of the large house. There was a cellar in the backyard and Xiaoyu said that there was a gold mine in the cellar. Could it be that the backyard of the house was a mine? Gu Fei went around to the backyard and saw Xiaoyu standing next to the cellar. He hurriedly went up. "You bought a weapon already?" Xiaoyu asked. "I just happened to meet a player who was selling equipment." Gu Fei casually made up a story. He pulled out the fire baptism and handed it over. "This blade isn't bad. It even has a magic attack. It's not bad for me since I'm so weak." This was something that Gu Fei had thought of a long time ago. After all, if he were to fight with Xiaoyu, he would have to pull out his blade sooner or later. If he said this now, Xiaoyu would naturally think that this blade was just bought by Gu Fei and wouldn't suspect anything. With Xiaoyu's stubbornness, Gu Fei believed that this lie was foolproof. It was just that he felt a little apologetic to play tricks on such a simple and honest girl. Xiaoyu took the blade and looked at it. As expected, she didn't have any suspicions. "Not bad. How much is it?" 50 gold. Gu Fei said. "That's expensive." Xiaoyu cried out. "I can't help it. I'm in a hurry for the quest. If there's one here, then hurry up and buy it. Going to Luminous City will waste a lot of time. If there's a time limit for this quest, then it'll be depressing." Gu Fei said. Xiaoyu nodded. Gu Fei's words had touched the bottom of her heart. No matter what, the mission was the most important. Then he handed the baptism of fire back. "We'll go find the village chief later. I've already looked." The original name of the blade was Baptism of Flames. The village elder coated it with silver before it became the Holy Baptism of Flames. Also, the prevent regeneration at the bottom was also created after it was coated with silver. Gu Fei said. "Stop regeneration, what does that mean?" Xiaoyu said. "It's probably to prevent the monster from healing." Gu Fei said. "Oh, I have to write it down quickly." Little Yu immediately took out a small notebook and began to write stroke by stroke. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I guessed it too." Thus, Little Rain added another parenthesis to prevent regeneration, prevent monsters from regaining health. She guessed it. "Why are you standing here?" Gu Fei asked. "Waiting for that person to go get the gold." Xiaoyu pointed to a nearby cellar. Gu Fei stretched his neck to take a look. It was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. Could it be that this person's mine was actually in his own backyard? As Gu Fei was muttering to himself, coughing sounds came from below the cellar. A person carrying a small bag climbed up the wooden ladder. This person was obviously an NPC. After coming out of the cellar, Gu Fei took a look. He had a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks. He had the appearance of a common profiteer in games. It was obvious that he was the richest man in Luminous Village, Mr. Adrian. Adrian climbed out of the cellar and threw the small bag to Xiaoyu. Gu Fei stretched his head to take a look. There were a few uncarved gold lumps in the bag. Some were big, some were small, but they were yellow and unremarkable. "You finished your mission?" Gu Fei asked. "I'll finish it after I take this back to Cloud City," Xiaoyu said. "What's the reward?" Gu Fei asked. "I don't know yet," Xiaoyu said. Xiaoyu's mission really wasn't difficult at all. It was just that the journey was long and the consumption of time was quite large. If the reward wasn't generous, then the heavens wouldn't tolerate it. "All right, my mission is done. I'll help you now." Xiaoyu put the small bag in her pocket and said after patting it. Gu Fei nodded and looked around. He said with some regret, "But I don't have any clues as to who this werewolf is." Doing a mission is to keep talking to the NPC until he can't say anything new. Then you can look for clues from there. Xiaoyu taught Gu Fei. This was a tough job. Luminous Village may not be big, but there were quite a few NPCs. From the east to the west, Gu Fei asked about 20 people. This didn't include the ones who ignored Gu Fei. The answer he got was always, "The village chief knows more." Helpless, the two once again went to the village chief's house. The village chief once again introduced them to the habits of the werewolves. It was nothing more than the night of the full moon. In the game, there was a difference between night and day. There was a cycle every 6 hours. 4 hours of day and 2 hours of night. The night was not so real that they couldn't see their fingers in front of them. It was said that the light that allowed players to see the monsters clearly came from the moonlight. However, whether or not the moon changed shape, Gu Fei never noticed. Xiao Yu was also unable to answer this question. Gu Fei looked at the time. When the two of them first crossed the Black Dragon Mountain range, it was almost daytime. Now, more than 3 hours had passed. In less than an hour, it would be night. Perhaps the system specially gave him a full moon in order to take care of his quest. We should go back to the church and look around. Maybe we can find something that can prove the identity of the werewolf. Xiao Yu said. Gu Fei felt that it was reasonable. Although from a common sense, if there was such a thing, it should have been found by the villagers. However, this quest was designed for players to complete, so the clues should be left for the players to find. Returning to the blood-stained stone in front of the church, Xiao Yu immediately laid on the ground and carefully searched. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If this was really the quest design, then the so-called clues should only be found by him, the person who accepted the quest. What could Xiao Yu find by lying on the ground? However, seeing her excited look, Gu Fei couldn't bear to dampen her spirits. So he remained silent and also began to look around. After a round, he found nothing. Gu Fei stood in front of the broken door of the church in a daze. Xiao Yu refused to give up and went to an even more remote corner to search. Gu Fei looked at the area that they had just searched. The grass that the two of them had flipped over, the stones that they had moved. In just a short while, the system had restored everything to its original state. This was the rule of the game. Anything that a player touched or moved, unless it was under special circumstances, would be refreshed or restored by the system after a certain period of time. If it was an NPC who moved it, it would be regarded as refreshed and would not be restored. At this time, Gu Fei, from where he stood, looked at the restored panoramic view of the courtyard and was suddenly stunned. He didn't know if this was the system's design or if it was a clue left behind. He only knew that he saw some traces of a fight. Broken stone slabs, trampled grass, broken shrubs, all these marks were definitely not something that could be formed naturally. This was definitely the damage caused by a fight. Gu Fei walked down the stairs and looked at these traces one by one. From time to time, he would even see some scenes of action flashing through his mind. These traces of a fight were definitely real, Gu Fei concluded. He didn't believe that this was a scene that could be created just by programming or drawing. The scene in front of him must have been created first and then simulated a group of opponents fighting on it. Then, the traces of their fight were preserved, which was why it was so real. But, if this was a clue to the quest, wasn't it a bit too much? Gu Fei didn't believe that an ordinary person would be able to see any clues from this. Even the game designers wouldn't be able to restore the battle scene from this. Chapter 62. Gu Fei and Xiao Yu left the church and once again went to harass the village elder. Village elder, what kind of person was Murphy who was killed by the werewolf? Gu Fei got straight to the point. Murphy was a good lad. He was honest and kind. He got along well with the villagers. It was a pity that he died. The village elder said. Gu Fei then simply asked if the lad was good at fighting. In the end, the village elders said the same thing. Then where did Murphy go after he died? Gu Fei asked. He was buried in the cemetery behind the south mountain of the village. Everyone in the village is buried there after they die. The village elder said. Gu Fei strode out of the village elder's house and went straight to the general store in the village. He bought a shovel and headed south up the mountain. What are you doing? Even with Xiao Yu's slow reaction, she could faintly sense what Gu Fei was doing. Digging up the grave. Gu Fei said. Why are you doing that? Xiao Yu asked. I think there's something strange about Murphy. Gu Fei said. What's strange? Xiao Yu asked. He should be very strong, but the village elder doesn't seem to know. Gu Fei said. Then how do you know? Xiaoyu asked. I guess. Gu Fei said. Oh. This kind of answer could fool Xiaoyu. For the sake of the mission, Xiaoyu didn't seem to be afraid of any sacrifice. Digging up the grave didn't make her feel the slightest bit of fear. The two of them arrived at the cemetery behind the hill and found Murphy's name among the tombstones. They immediately began to dig up the grave. A brown coffin gradually appeared in front of the two of them. Gu Fei shoved the shovel into the gap of the coffin lid and called Xiaoyu over to help. Xiaoyu stretched out her hand and the coffin lid immediately flew out. Thinking that there might be some scary scenes inside, Gu Fei hurriedly covered Xiaoyu's eyes with his hand and quickly glanced inside. I'm not afraid. Xiaoyu pulled away the hand that Gu Fei used to cover her eyes and looked inside the coffin. Huh, why is there nothing? Gu Fei was deep in thought. Are they slacking off in game production? Little Rain said. I don't think so. If they didn't want to make it so detailed, they wouldn't have put an empty coffin here. Since the coffin was designed, how hard would it be to throw a skeleton or a corpse into it? There must be something behind this. Gu Fei said. Could it be that Murphy isn't dead yet? Xiaoyu said. That's one possibility, Gu Fei said. Another possibility is that the body was stolen. Why do you want to steal the corpse? Xiaoyu asked. I don't know. Maybe the corpse has some secrets? Gu Fei said. What do we do now? Xiaoyu asked. Let's wait here and see, Gu Fei said. Wait for what? Xiaoyu said. If digging up the grave and opening the coffin isn't part of the quest, the grave will be refreshed and restored to its original state. But if it's part of the quest, then it should only be refreshed after I complete the entire quest, Gu Fei said. Little Rain listened with a blank face. Gu Fei smiled and said, the game's quests are all made by the designers. Doing quests, rather than saying that you're interacting with the NPC, it's better to say that you're interacting with the designer behind the NPC. If we can grasp their psychology, it'll be very beneficial for doing this kind of slightly difficult quest. Xiaoyu continued to be distressed. After a long time, she said, How would I know what they're thinking? Gu Fei smiled. I don't know either. I'm just guessing. The two of them waited by the graveyard for a few minutes, but Murphy's grave didn't return to its original state. Gu Fei nodded his head in affirmation. There was something wrong with Murphy's character. At this time, Yi Xiaowu had nothing to do. She watched Gu Fei do the quest with the tracker on in the monitoring group. Yi Xiaowu brushed off the monitoring team's doubts about not following the rules by saying, This is the first person to receive a mission chain. I need to follow up and observe it to see if there are any problems with our mission chain. In reality, Gu Fei wasn't the only person in the game who had received a quest chain. Yi Xiaowu followed him purely because he was interested in this character. And Gu Fei's quest progress surprised him. The completion of the quest chain wasn't a straight line. There would be many opportunities to reach the same goal. Of course, these were all designed ideas. The differences in players' levels, professions, and skills were the main factors that affected the different solutions. Yi Xiaowu already had a deep understanding of Gu Fei's account. After he substituted himself in, he found that no matter what method he used, he would be stuck at a certain point. The reason was that he was limited by his level or skills. This was a problem that couldn't be solved no matter how hard he tried. With a mischievous attitude, he wanted to see Gu Fei at his wit's end. While Gu Fei and Little Rain were searching for clues in the church, Yi Xiaowu secretly laughed for a long time. However, to his great surprise, the two of them seemed to have really found something. After that, they went straight to the village chief's house, and after that, they went to dig up Murphy's grave. Murphy was indeed a possible link, and they could find a breakthrough from the church. But it wasn't something that could be solved like Gu Fei and Xiaoyu's carpet search. The method that Yi Xiaowu knew was definitely not something that the two of them could use. But right now, the two of them seemed to have found something here. Yi Xiaowu really wanted to hear what the two of them were talking about. But the surveillance system's voice was blocked. After all, the players' conversations were likely to involve very important privacy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they wouldn't even monitor the players' conversations. Removing the voice block required extremely high authority. It wasn't something that Yi Xiaowu or the monitoring group could decide. With a blank expression, Yi Xiaowu and Gu Fei and Xiao Yu, who were by the graveyard, thought together. He suddenly realized that if there was a level or skill restriction, then the eddy segment at the beginning of this chain of quests shouldn't have been completed by a level 30 player. But in the end, Gu Fei had actually passed it. Could it be that there was a path in the chain of quests that they themselves didn't realize? In the game, after leaving the graveyard, Gu Fei and Xiao Yu found the village chief again. When he told them that Murphy's body was missing, the village chief was only surprised, but he couldn't say a word. After leaving the village chief's house, the sky gradually darkened. 4 hours of daylight had passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was already night in the game. Gu Fei searched for the moon in the sky. Would it be a full moon tonight? If it was a full moon, where would the werewolves appear? When Gu Fei arrived at the church, he hurried over with Xiao Yu. Moonlight finally shone down, but unfortunately, the moon tonight wasn't full. If the moon in the game was ever changing, tonight would probably be the night with the least roundness. Xiao Yu, look at the shape of the moon, Gu Fei said to Xiao Yu. He suspected that he was in a quest setting, living under a different sky from the other players. Are you nearsighted? Xiao Yu asked as she looked up. It's curved. The same shape. Gu Fei muttered to himself. Today wasn't the official appearance day for a werewolf. The dilapidated church looked lonely and desolate in the night. What a nice murder scene. Gu Fei sighed. Just then, a shadow suddenly flashed past the dilapidated wall. Who's there? Gu Fei shouted subconsciously as he pulled out his sword and rushed over. But the shadow was already 1 step ahead of him. A werewolf! Xiao Yu cried out, but in the face of such a terrifying creature, there was no fear in her voice. Instead, there was surprise. The werewolf is out. The game designers would definitely cry. They had designed such a strange scene, but they had encountered a girl who was so stupid that she forgot to be afraid. Gu Fei thought to himself as he pulled out his sword and slashed at the shadow that was pouncing over. It was indeed a werewolf. It was tall, and its eyes were glowing green. Its 2 powerful front claws were coming for Gu Fei. Its bloody mouth was full of spittle, and its sharp teeth looked very eerie under the moonlight. The werewolf twisted its body in midair and dodged Gu Fei's slash. Its front claws continued to swing. Gu Fei could already smell the stench in its mouth. Without any delay, Gu Fei's sword was raised to his side and met the enemy's sweeping claws. Who? Gu Fei's body was already sent flying. It was too fast. Gu Fei thought to himself. The werewolf was as fast as he had imagined. This speed, if compared, was comparable to the warrior's whirlwind slash. So Gu Fei used the same method he used to block Xiao Yu's whirlwind slash. Fortunately, his sword did not break this time. In addition, his sword was facing outwards, and the werewolf was not using a weapon, but its own claws. It should have been injured. This was the knowledge of physics. The action of force is reciprocal. Gu Fei fell to the ground, and his HP dropped a little. If he was hit by the claws, Gu Fei had no doubt that he would be killed in an instant. Looking up, Xiao Yu also raised her axe and wanted to slash. No! Gu Fei hurriedly shouted. He and Xiao Yu were originally standing together. If the werewolf wanted to attack, the 2 of them could have fallen together. However, it only chose Gu Fei as its target. Obviously, it was because Gu Fei was the player who accepted the quest. Although it did not attack Xiao Yu, it did not mean that it would not retaliate if Xiao Yu attacked it. Xiao Yu wanted to stop, but it was too late. At this moment, the werewolf let out a low growl, suddenly turned around and jumped over the wall to escape. At this time, Xiao Yu only swung her axe halfway. I scared the werewolf away? Xiao Yu was dumbfounded. Gu Fei quickly ran over the wall, but the werewolf was already gone. It's injured. Gu Fei returned to Xiao Yu's side, crouched down, and touched the few drops of blood on the ground. Did you notice its neck? Gu Fei asked Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu shook her head. Werewolves also wear dog collars? Gu Fei muttered to himself. Just before the werewolf escaped, Gu Fei noticed that it was wearing something on its neck. Chapter 63. Could it be that it wasn't a werewolf, but a rather large wolfhound? Shall you guess? This can't be. Gu Fei felt that the quest chain was a design that the game company was proud of, so there was no need for such a nondescript suspense. The werewolf wasn't actually a werewolf, but a wolfhound that had become a demon? This was too comical. Let's see if it left any other bloodstains. Gu Fei said, "That's right. We can catch it by following the bloodstains." Xiao Yu was excited. It's just a cut on its paw. It shouldn't be that exaggerated, right? Gu Fei said, "Who knows?" Xiao Yu had already gone off to search the area. Gu Fei was staring at the drops of blood on the ground, lost in thought. The werewolf's strength was beyond Gu Fei's imagination. It was incredibly fast, and its attack was also high. He tried his best, but he could only block it for a moment. If he really fought the werewolf, he had no chance of winning. After all, this kind of gap was something that couldn't be helped in the game. He wanted to make up for it with technique, but he had no idea where to start. Gu Fei didn't even have the chance to fight the werewolf to see through its weaknesses, and the werewolf could probably finish him off in 2 or 3 moves. But why would such a powerful boss run away? Just a cut on its paw could make the ferocious werewolf cower? This was too pretentious. Or was the baptism of fire so powerful after being coated with silver? Did the werewolf notice the silver attribute and immediately pee its pants in fear? Clearly, the werewolf's escape wasn't its own decision in this kind of situation, but a plot set up by the designer. And Gu Fei only fulfilled the condition for it to run away. This condition seemed to be for the werewolf to be injured. However, what kind of message was this plot trying to convey? Gu Fei still couldn't figure it out. There's no other bloodstains. Xiao Yu came back after crawling all over the place and said in disappointment, "Let's go find the village chief. I have something to ask." Gu Fei said, "Really? Let's go, let's go." Luminous Village was quiet at night. The NPCs that were originally scattered throughout the village had disappeared, replaced by the lights of various houses. In the game, players had no day or night. On the other hand, NPCs strictly adhered to a daily routine. They would come out during the day and go home to rest at night. For a moment, it was hard to tell who was a human and who was a machine. He knocked on the door of the village chief's house. The village chief was as polite as ever. "Oh, warrior, you're here." According to the village chief, Gu Fei had always been a warrior. What did the werewolf that killed Murphy look like? Is he wearing something on his neck? Gu Fei asked. "Oh, you'll have to ask Adrian, who lives by the church. He's the only one who saw it." That night, he heard noises coming from the church and went out to investigate. In the end, he saw a werewolf kill Murphy. "Poor man, he is so frightened," said the village head. "Adrian?" Gu Fei recalled the richest man in Luminous Village. "Village chief, where is Murphy's house?" Gu Fei asked again. "The 3rd house by the forest. No one has been there for a long time since he died," said the village chief. "Let's go take a look," Gu Fei said to Xiao Yu. Murphy's house was actually very easy to find. Among the many houses that were lit, the only one that was dark was it. After Murphy's death, this was an empty house that no one lived in. As they neared the house, Gu Fei gently pulled Xiao Yu behind him and signaled for her to be quiet. Then, he guarded the flame baptism in front of him and carefully walked into the house. Xiao Yu was so nervous that she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. She didn't know what happened, but she saw Gu Fei walk to the door, put his ear to the door, and quietly listen for a moment before pushing the door open and entering. Xiao Yu nervously looked around before sneaking in with Gu Fei. Gu Fei had already lit the oil lamp in the house and was standing by the bed looking at a piece of parchment in his hand. "What is it?" Xiao Yu came over. "It looks like a map," said Gu Fei. "A treasure map?" Xiao Yu was excited. "Too bad there aren't any coordinates. It'll be a bit troublesome to find," said Gu Fei. "Let me take a look." Xiao Yu took it. "This is the main road of the village, and this looks like a church." Xiao Yu took a pen and drew on it, her mouth muttering something. "I know where it is." After a moment, Xiao Yu cried out in surprise. When she turned around, she saw Gu Fei standing by the door, carefully looking outside. "What are you looking at?" Xiao Yu came over. Gu Fei signaled for her to be quiet. Although the people outside were NPCs, Gu Fei didn't know if making too much noise would be a condition to stop their activities. Let's go, follow them and take a look. Gu Fei pulled Xiaoyu. I found the location of the treasure. Xiaoyu waved the parchment. Okay, we'll go dig for treasure in a bit. Let's follow these four guys first, said Gu Fei. What are they going to do? Xiaoyu asked. I don't know, but I recognize 3 of them are the type that hide from me. I've never seen the 4th one before. This group of people is really strange, said Gu Fei. Follow them, Xiaoyu said. The 4 of them quietly walked on the main road of Luminous Village, carrying shovels and other tools on their shoulders. Oh, they're not going to dig for treasure, are they? It can't be us, right? Xiaoyu said. Didn't you already figure out where the treasure is? See if they're going the right way, said Gu Fei. No, said Xiaoyu. Follow them. The 4 of them finally arrived at a mountain near the village. Somewhere halfway up the mountain, after pushing aside a layer of plants covering the hillside, the 4 of them disappeared. Look, what's that? Xiaoyu pointed. That's a cave, said Gu Fei. What are they doing here? Xiaoyu asked. How would I know, said Gu Fei. Let's go take a look? Xiaoyu suggested. Don't worry, come back in the morning. They'll leave at dawn, said Gu Fei. How do you know? Xiaoyu asked. They still have to stand guard on the main road of Luminous Village during the day, said Gu Fei. Xiaoyu looked at the time. There's still more than an hour. Let's go to the place you figured out first, said Gu Fei. Where is it? The forest behind Murphy's house. The 2 of them went back the way they came and came to the forest behind Murphy's house. Xiaoyu took the parchment and led the way, looking around and finally stopped under a tree. It's here. Xiaoyu pointed. This shovel was really the right one to buy. Gu Fei muttered, took out the shovel from his pocket and started digging. Treasure chest. Treasure chest. Treasure chest. Xiaoyu chanted and saw the hole getting deeper and deeper. In the end, the treasure chest didn't come out, but a sack came out. It's so heavy. Gu Fei grabbed it with both hands, but couldn't pull it out of the hole. Let me. Xiaoyu stepped forward and lightly pulled, and the sack came out of the hole. This caused Gu Fei to feel depressed for quite a while. When they opened the sack and looked inside, the 2 of them were startled. Gold? The 2 of them looked at each other. Xiaoyu took out the small bag of gold given by the quest, took out a piece, and compared it with the one in the sack. It looks so similar, Xiaoyu said. Adrian, is it? Gu Fei pondered. Let's return the gold to him. There will definitely be a reward. Xiaoyu was happy. Did you trigger a quest? Gu Fei asked. If there's no quest, how can there be a reward? Gu Fei said. Then what's this for? I think this is also an important part of my quest chain. Gu Fei had a headache. There are more and more things. I'm so tired, let's rest for a while. Where did Xiaoyu asked? The inn in the village should still be open. Let's rest for a while and wait for the sun to rise. Gu Fei said. The 2 of them arrived at the inn in the village. After all, it was still a game, so the shops wouldn't be closed. Whatever you want to drink. It's my treat, Gu Fei said. I suddenly feel so sleepy, let's lie down for a while. Xiaoyu said as she laid down on the table. Gu Fei casually ordered a glass of wine, and as he drank, he pondered over his quest chain. 2 groups of villagers with completely different attitudes. Signs of an evenly matched battle in front of the church. The powerful yet unknown Murphy's strength. Murphy's corpse that had disappeared. A werewolf that ran away because of a small injury. Murphy's hidden gold. And the 4 villagers that ran to the cave in the middle of the night. There had to be a storyline that could explain all of these events. This was the perfect final storyline of the quest chain Eddie's coat of arms. If it was just to find the werewolves and kill them, Gu Fei doubted that it could explain all of the problems. At this time, Gu Fei already had a plan in mind. Right now, all he had to do was wait for the sun to rise. As long as he grasped a few more key things, the truth might come to light. On the other side, Yi Xiaowu, who had been watching Gu Fei's quests like he was watching a movie, had already experienced too many surprises from Gu Fei. After walking around in front of the church, he suddenly ran to dig up Murphy's grave. Yi Xiaowu still didn't know if he had discovered something or if he had guessed it. He had actually killed the werewolf that had attacked him. He was only level 30. A level 30 character should have been slapped to death by that werewolf with one slap. Based on the current situation, Gu Fei's final completion rate of the quest chain could possibly reach over 90%. Not bad, completion rate. This was the standard to measure the completion rate of a quest chain and determine the final reward. Killing werewolves? That was just one way to complete this quest chain. If it was Yi Xiaowu, he would know where the werewolf was and directly kill it with a single slash. Of course, this would still count as completing the quest, but he would definitely receive the lowest completion rate and the worst reward. Perfectly presenting the sequence of the entire quest chain was the way to obtain the highest completion rate. It was like a single-player game with multiple open endings. All the endings could be considered as clearing the game, but there would definitely be one that could be called the perfect ending. Because the great young detective Conan had once said, there is only one truth. Chapter 64. Gu Fei drank a small glass of wine by himself. Seeing that Xiaoyu was sleeping soundly, he felt a bit tired. Eating and drinking in the game was just a sensory stimulation, it had no effect on the real body. Sleeping was the only way to relieve the body's fatigue. Of course, the effect was not as good as sleeping in bed. So choosing to sleep in the game instead of logging off was a very unwise decision. Looking around, the inn was empty. Luminous Village wasn't far from Moonlit Night City and there weren't any popular leveling areas nearby, so there wasn't even a player to rest. Gu Fei and Xiaoyu walked around a few times and all they could see were NPCs. It wasn't right to sleep like this, but it wasn't right to not sleep either. Gu Fei had nothing to do, so he got up and practiced with his sword, took out his staff, and practiced with his staff. Finally, he practiced with his fists and legs. The sky finally began to brighten. Get up, get up. Gu Fei pushed Xiaoyu. It's daybreak? Xiaoyu was still sleepy. It's daybreak. Gu Fei said. Lie down for another 5 minutes. Xiaoyu fell down again. What? Gu Fei said. Let's go, time waits for no one. Xiaoyu woke up in an instant and stood up straight. Wake up, she said to Gu Fei. The two left the inn and went straight to the hillside that they had followed at night. Since the coordinates were recorded, even though the surrounding environment was the same, they could still easily find it. There was no one around, so Gu Fei went up and pushed aside the camouflage of branches and leaves that covered the cave entrance. The cave wasn't big, and it wasn't as complicated as Black Dragon Cave. After a few steps, they reached the deepest part of the cave, which was as big as a room. Gu Fei picked up a few pieces of gravel on the ground and looked at them. He then touched the wall. This small cave was a gold mine that the richest man, Adrian, had given to Xiaoyu. He also found it in the forest behind Murphy's house. It seemed like this was the source. Was this mine, as well as the sack of gold that Murphy had hidden, related to Adrian? Gu Fei did not forget that the gold mine quest between Xiaoyu and Adrian had nothing to do with his quest chain. In other words, because Xiaoyu coincidentally came with him and Xiaoyu also happened to have such a mission, Gu Fei found out that Adrian had this batch of gold mines. If not for this incident, the current Gu Fei would never think of Adrian the moment he saw Jingquang. What is this? Just as Gu Fei was pondering, Xiaoyu found an earthen jar in the corner of the cave. By the time Gu Fei walked over, Xiaoyu had already opened the earthen jar. She grabbed a handful of grayish-white powder from within and extended it in front of Gu Fei. Gu Fei's expression turned cold. This is bone ash. Bone ashes? Xiaoyu was stunned. Dead people. If you burn it, it'll be ashes, Gu Fei said as he guarded against Xiaoyu who was screaming and throwing the earthen jar away. However, little Yu was completely unmoved. She even asked, "Whose is this?" "This village seems to only have one dead person," Gu Fei said. "Murphy?" Xiaoyu said. Gu Fei nodded. Someone dug up Murphy's body and burned it to ashes? Why would they do that? Xiaoyu asked. Looks like Murphy was a werewolf, Gu Fei said. So Murphy wasn't murdered, he committed suicide, Xiaoyu said. Gu Fei smiled and shook his head. Murphy was a werewolf. This can explain a lot of questions. He was a werewolf, so of course he could fight evenly with another werewolf. Also, he had to hide his true identity, so the villagers didn't know that he was very good at fighting. In addition, he had already been buried, but he was cremated again. What does this mean? Legend has it that when a werewolf dies, his corpse will turn into a blood-sucking zombie. In order to prevent this from happening, someone cremated his body. Gu Fei said. Who could it be? Xiao Yu asked. His own kind. Only his own kind would know his true identity and worry that his corpse would turn into a blood-sucking zombie, Gu Fei said. Is it the werewolf that killed him? Xiao Yu asked. Maybe. However, for the ashes to appear in this place, it means one thing. Gu Fei said. What is it? Anyone who would come to this mine to dig for gold is a werewolf. I suspect that it's the ones who avoided me. They're all werewolves, Gu Fei said. See, I already told you. Xiao Yu said. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. You're so smart. Xiao Yu said proudly, I already told you, I'm a mission expert. Amazing, amazing. Then what do we do next? Xiao Yu asked. This group of werewolves live together with humans and don't seem to have harmed them. It seems like their target is the gold mine here. This mine isn't big, and if they work together, it can only hold 4 people. I estimate that 4 people come here every night to dig. Murphy, that guy, was up to no good. He hid a bag of gold for himself. He was discovered by others and was eventually killed. I think that's about it. Gu Fei said. Werewolves are also greedy. Xiao Yu said. With so many werewolves, I don't think the mission is for me to kill them all, right? There must be another way. Gu Fei said. What do we do? Xiao Yu said. Let's find the guy who attacked us yesterday first. Gu Fei said. You know who he is? Gu Fei smiled. His right hand was injured by my blade, and my silver-plated blade has the ability to prevent regeneration. Werewolf wounds won't heal that quickly. I think this is the system's clue to find this werewolf. The person with an injured right hand is a werewolf. Xiao Yu said. That's right. Then let's go. The two left the mine, covered it up again, and returned to the village. The NPCs in the village were all in their positions, and Gu Fei was hesitating. If he directly went up and pulled the other person's right hand to see, would it immediately lead to a fight? After thinking about it, he felt that it was better to take a peek. Fortunately, the NPCs in the game all had the characteristic of blindly gesturing when they spoke. Xiao Yu went up to talk to the people, and Gu Fei waited for an opportunity to observe from the side. In the end, all the people who avoided Gu Fei, which was the werewolves, didn't have an injury on their right hand. How could this be? Gu Fei was dumbfounded. Is there anyone else we missed? Xiao Yu asked. Gu Fei had already asked the village chief about the number of people in the village, and now that he counted, there was no one missing. The entire village was out in the sun. Let's take a look at everyone. Xiao Yu said. That's the only way. Gu Fei helplessly accepted this stupid method. These people would also pay attention to Gu Fei if he went up, but after another round, there was still no one. Why not? Xiao Yu said. Now, there's only one person who didn't look. Gu Fei said. Adrian. Gu Fei said. All the villagers in the village were around the main road, and only Adrian was squatting in his big house next to the church. Xiao Yu nodded. He also has gold, and people with gold must be werewolves. That's not necessarily true. He's the richest man in the village, and he might have bought the gold from a werewolf. Let's go find him first. The two arrived at Adrian's house, and Xiao Yu was familiar with the place. She went up and knocked on the door, but there was no response for a long time. Were there even NPCs who weren't home? Gu Fei was depressed. Maybe in the cellar in the backyard. Xiao Yu said. The two arrived at the backyard and saw a lock hanging on the cellar. Adrian obviously couldn't be in there. When the two of them returned to the door, they were surprised to see Adrian returning from the outside. Gu Fei hurriedly called out to him. Oh, beloved warrior. The richest man was indeed unique, and his attitude towards Gu Fei was the friendliest and kindest in the village. I heard you saw the werewolf that killed Murphy. Gu Fei said. Adrian's face immediately showed a look of fear. That was a terrible night, he said, and then described the werewolf's terrible appearance. Murphy was already dead at that time, right? Gu Fei asked. Yes, poor man, Adrian said. Did you see how he was killed by the werewolf? Gu Fei asked. No, when I got there, he was already dead. The werewolf also left very quickly, Adrian said. Gu Fei thanked him, and Adrian very happily accepted, making way for the two to leave. His right hand didn't seem to be injured? Xiao Yu said. Gu Fei nodded. He felt depressed. He didn't think that this method wouldn't work. However, after the conversation with Adrian, Gu Fei had a new question in his mind. If Murphy wanted to fight, he would have to show his true form. Then when he died, he should have been a wolf. Why did Adrian, and the villagers who arrived later, only see a human corpse? No one could casually change into a werewolf's form. The only one who could do this was the werewolf themselves. This meant that at the last moment, when Murphy knew he couldn't win, he used the last bit of his strength to change back into human form. He would rather die than let the villagers know that he was a werewolf. What kind of train of thought was this? Wholeheartedly doing good, abandoning darkness for light. A wolf with the heart of a man? So he wasn't a werewolf, but a Lycan? How depressing! Gu Fei roared towards the sky. This chain of quests was giving him a headache. Just as he was about to make a discovery, he realized that something wasn't right. He looked up and saw an NPC in front of him. It was the guy who had secretly gone to mine last night. Fuck, what was the point of going around in circles with a bunch of system-designed robots? Wasn't the quest just to try and activate the right conditions? At worst, he would just die. What else could he do? With this thought, Gu Fei strode forward, pointed at the guy, and said, "Hey." The NPC immediately looked at Gu Fei with an evasive expression. "I saw you digging for gold." Gu Fei went straight to the point. The NPC's expression changed, and he suddenly turned and ran. "Don't run!" Gu Fei shouted as he chased after him. You see, activating a new plot was sometimes this simple. Chapter 65. This NPC ran very fast. Even Quan Agility's Gu Fei found it difficult to catch up. He could only make sure that this guy did not leave his line of sight. As for the clumsy little Rain, she was left far behind in no time. The NPC did not run far. He circled around the village and finally rushed into a house. Gu Fei's eyes never left his body. He saw everything clearly. Without hesitation, he strode up to the door and knocked on it. Gu Fei knew that this guy was also a werewolf, but he had already made up his mind to die. He wanted to see if half of the village's werewolves would reveal their true forms and surround him. If that really happened, he would accept it. If he did not form a guild, he would not be able to complete this chain of quests. The door finally opened after a few bangs. However, it was not the guy that Gu Fei had been chasing. Standing in front of him was a strong man that was a head taller than Gu Fei. Gu Fei stuck out his tongue. Werewolves would become taller after transforming. This guy in front of him was already so strong. If he transformed, he would at least be as big as an elephant, right? Gu Fei had seen this guy before. When the guy ran away, he ended up hiding in his house. Could it be that this guy was the leader of this werewolf group? I want to know about the gold mine. Gu Fei went straight to the point. The other party was silent. He did not speak, nor did he express any intention to expel him. I already know. You are all werewolves. Gu Fei was ready to risk it all. He did not expect that after he said this, not only did the other party not show any intention to kill him, but he also showed a nervous expression. Don't worry, I will not tell anyone. Gu Fei expressed his position to the werewolf. Thinking back, he could not just rely on his mouth to complete quests. Sometimes he needed to show some tools. He could not treat these machines as real people just because this was a holographic game. Trying to communicate with them would be a waste of effort. With this thought in mind, Gu Fei took out Murphy's urn and held it in front of the other party. I found these ashes in the mine. Murphy's grave is empty. I think you guys dug him up and burned him to ashes, right? Gu Fei said. A sorrowful look appeared in his eyes again. The NPC's emotional changes were clearly displayed on his face. It was obvious that he was doing it for the players to see. Gu Fei had to consider the problem from the perspective of their emotions. Hearing that he knew they were werewolves, the NPC seemed nervous and uneasy. When mentioning Murphy's death, the NPC seemed very sad. As for Murphy, he would rather die than reveal his identity as a werewolf. The rest of the villagers were still kept in the dark. Gu Fei finally understood. These werewolves were afraid that the villagers would know their identity. Murphy wanted to transform into a human with her last breath because she didn't want to cause panic among the villagers and bring trouble to her people. After all, Murphy was a member of the village. If people saw that he was a werewolf, everyone would start to suspect the real identity of the people around him. Under this kind of attention, any careless werewolves could be exposed. Thinking about how he thought that they killed Murphy because they didn't split the loot evenly, Gu Fei felt very ashamed. But where did this werewolf that killed Murphy come from? What was more annoying was that the big guy in front of him didn't speak. Could it be that this guy was a purebred werewolf and hadn't learned the human language? You don't want the villagers to know your identity? Gu Fei continued. The big guy continued to look at him. Why not? Gu Fei completely displayed Little Rain's spirit this time and asked unyieldingly. We don't want to kill, but we don't want to be killed. The big guy finally spoke. Gu Fei let out a long breath and asked, What do you mean? If the villagers knew we were werewolves, they would definitely think of a way to destroy us, the big guy said. But in reality, we've lived with them for many years and have never thought of harming them. We only go into the depths of the forest to hunt some wild beasts during the night of the full moon to commemorate our wild bloodline. Then why do you want to live with humans? Gu Fei asked. We were the ones who lived here first. We used to live in the forest, and then we learned from humans and walked out of the forest to build a village. Then, gradually, humans came to live with us. The village has been like this for many years. The big guy said, Then what about the werewolf that killed Murphy? Gu Fei said, He's not one of us. The big guy said, I don't know where he came from, but he has great power. I think he might be someone from the village because he seems to know us very well. But we can't catch his aura at all. Why did he kill Murphy? Gu Fei asked. The big guy didn't speak again. Ayaya, you guys run so fast. Xiao Yu's voice came from behind. She had only arrived after a long time. Gu Fei's heart moved, and he signaled for Xiao Yu to take out the sack of gold that they had dug out from the forest behind Murphy's house. I found a map in Murphy's house and dug this up. Gu Fei showed the tool again. What's with the gold mine? Gu Fei asked again. The big guy finally spoke. One day, on the night of the full moon, we went into the forest to hunt. This strange werewolf suddenly appeared and demanded that we obey his leadership. Murphy challenged him, but he defeated him. From then on, he demanded that we take turns to help him dig for gold every night. You have so many people and you're afraid of him? Attack him together. Gu Fei said, Attacking as a group is the way we deal with our prey. Werewolves can only fight one-on-one. Obeying the strongest is our tradition. The big guy said, That's how Murphy died? Gu Fei asked. No. We all felt that this strange fellow came from a shady background, but no one could defeat him. Murphy said that he wanted to find out his human identity so that he could use this condition to blackmail him. It was probably during this process that Murphy was discovered and killed. The big guy said, Don't you want to take revenge for Murphy? Gu Fei said, We don't know his human identity, and no one can defeat him. The big guy said. Gu Fei thought for a moment, then suddenly asked, If you werewolves are injured by silver, what will happen? In that case, the wound will take many days to heal. The big guy said, Is one night enough? Not enough. Is there any medicine or magic that we can use? Gu Fei asked. No, we werewolves have strong self-healing abilities. As long as we aren't injured by silver, we can quickly recover. The big guy said. Gu Fei already had a plan in mind. He nodded and said, We'll help you deal with this fellow. Relying on humans to deal with it is too despicable and shameless. The big guy said. He didn't expect werewolves to have such integrity. Gu Fei said helplessly, Maybe he's also a human? Human? We saw with our own eyes that he was a werewolf and had the aura of a werewolf. It was only because he hid his aura very well when he turned into a human that we couldn't find him. The big guy said, "Is he wearing something around his neck?" Gu Fei asked. "I think so, that's him. I already injured him with a silver weapon yesterday, but I didn't find any injured villagers today. If he isn't human, how could he heal so quickly?" Gu Fei said, "Don't worry, leave it to me. Also, I won't tell anyone else about your identities." After saying goodbye to the big guy, Gu Fei and Xiao Yu continued on their way. "What do you know?" Xiao Yu asked. When she came over, Gu Fei and the big guy were already halfway through their conversation. Gu Fei simply repeated what he said. Xiao Yu had already forgotten about the first part and only asked about the last part. A human's wound can be healed in one night? Humans don't have this ability, but with magic and the healing of a priest, can't they heal instantly? Think about the NPC priests at the entrance of the Priest Academy. Gu Fei reminded Xiao Yu. At the entrance of the Priest Academy in Cloud City, heavily injured players could receive treatment from the system's priests and their wounds would instantly heal. Since they could heal players, they could also heal NPCs. Werewolves, on the other hand, were dark-type creatures, so they obviously couldn't receive holy healing from priests. Then how can a human turn into a werewolf? Xiao Yu said. I'm not sure about that, but I already know who he is. Gu Fei said. Who is it? Xiao Yu asked. It's up to whoever has the gold mine. Gu Fei smiled. Adrian. Xiao Yu said. That's right. Gu Fei nodded. Oh, then if you kill him, will I not be able to complete my quest? Xiao Yu was worried. Of course not. Gu Fei said, after I complete my quest, even if Adrian dies, he'll respawn again. He'll still be the rich Adrian from Luminous Village. Who knows, maybe next time you'll have to find him for your gold. That's good, Xiao Yu said. This time, it's all thanks to you. Gu Fei said. What? If it wasn't for your quest, I wouldn't have known that Adrian was related to Jin Kuang. How would I know that he's a werewolf? Gu Fei laughed. I told you, I'm a quest expert. Xiao Yu said. How amazing! Gu Fei praised. Then is your chain of quests about to be completed? Xiao Yu asked. I think it's almost done. The silhouette of Adrian's house could already be seen on the road ahead. Gu Fei took out Flame's baptism. The current problem is how to defeat this guy. Chapter 66. Gu Fei might have said that, but the reason he dared to come to Adrian was because he already had confidence in himself. Humans wanted to turn into werewolves, either through magic or tools. When Adrian turned into a werewolf, there was a strange thing on his neck. Gu Fei concluded that it was the necklace that helped him become a werewolf. When he met Adrian before, Gu Fei remembered that there was nothing on his neck. This meant that it wasn't a necklace that could be worn casually, but a necklace that would turn the werewolf once it was worn. As long as Adrian didn't have the chance to wear the necklace, he wouldn't be able to become a werewolf. Then he would be a normal human. It was that simple. Gu Fei went through his plan again and felt that it was foolproof. Adrian's house was right in front of him. Gu Fei stretched out his hand, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. Adrian opened the door and Gu Fei looked at his neck again. It was empty. Oh dear warrior, you're here. Adrian said the same thing. Gu Fei threw the bag of gold that he found in Murphy's place. I already know what happened to you. This is the gold that Murphy hid. I think he used it as bait to lure you out, right? You must have been looking for it for a long time. This wasn't a meaningless move. NPCs belonged to a special group. Players could interact with them casually, but if the system judged that contact would cause them to lose health points, then the NPC would be like an individual in a safe zone. Attacks would be ineffective. So, Gu Fei had to at least make Adrian an NPC that he could kill. Adrian's expression changed as soon as the gold was tossed onto the table. The werewolves have told me everything. I know you're behind this. You know who they are and that they don't want to get into trouble with humans, so you use them to work for you for free. Despicable. Boy. Gu Fei thought to himself, I'm actually teaching a robot a moral lesson. Surrender. Gu Fei revealed the flame baptism. Adrian suddenly turned and ran, but Gu Fei was prepared. He wouldn't let Adrian have any free time, even if it was just a few seconds. Wearing a necklace was enough. Adrian evaded with a swing of his blade. He was fairly agile, but he was still far from being comparable to the werewolves. He was only at the level of a bandit leader. "Su, little you, block the back door," Gu Fei shouted. "Got it?" Xiao Yu was already in position. Before Gu Fei and Adrian had a falling out, she had already blocked the exit according to Gu Fei's instructions. Only in such a narrow space like the room could he force his opponent to wear the necklace. Gu Fei had practiced this method in the hotel last night. The lobby of the inn was about the same size as Adrian's house. As he executed his saber technique, the layers of heat waves from the baptism of fire reverberated in the room. Amidst the bright red saber light, the silver line on the blade became very eye-catching. Adrian could only dodge under the pressure of Gu Fei's blade. "Fuck!" Yi Xiaowu, who was admiring Gu Fei's quest besides Qianli, couldn't help but roar when he saw Gu Fei rush to the last hurdle. They had designed a necklace for Adrian that would transform once it was worn, but they didn't expect it to become a loophole. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, Yi Xiaowu wouldn't have believed that someone could prevent Adrian from wearing the necklace. Although the quest chain was measured by the completion rate of the storyline, there would usually be a high difficulty battle interspersed within. After all, battles were the main focus of the game. In Gu Fei's quest chain, the final battle with the werewolf was like the final boss of a game. In order to defeat it, having strength was obviously the easiest way. Apart from this, waiting for an opportunity to destroy the werewolf's necklace or persistently stalling for time until the necklace's effects wore off were all tricks that could be devised when one couldn't defeat the werewolf directly. However, there was no way that one wouldn't even give Adrian a chance to transform. And Gu Fei had done it without a doubt. Like this, the final boss strength was greatly reduced. Adrian's current skill was a shrunken version of Suo Tu's. His speed wasn't any slower than Suo Tu's, and he had shrunken his attack and defense. Wait. Adrian, who was already covered in injuries, yelled. After all, he was still a boss. He wasn't killed by Gu Fei in one hit like a cowardly mortal. After taking quite a few hits, he still had the strength to jump around. Gu Fei didn't stop. What if this was a trick to make him stop and then instantly take out the necklace to transform? "Do you know what you're doing? You're helping the mutated race kill your own kind," Adrian shouted as he fled. "What are they?" "They're werewolves, savage werewolves." Gu Fei was depressed. Why was it that in the blink of an eye, it was a robot giving him a moral lesson? "Let me go, and half of the treasures in my cellar will be yours," Adrian shouted. What answered him was a flash of a sword. "All of it?" Adrian continued to shout. What answered him was still the flash of a sword. Gu Fei didn't show any mercy. Finally, Adrian couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. He yelled hoarsely, "You idiot!" His hand rose and the sword fell. The world was quiet. Yi Xiaowu stared blankly at the screen. His last little trick didn't fool Gu Fei. The game designer said that when Adrian's health dropped to 1/5, he would start to bewitch the player with words. If the player thought that this was a possible quest reward and let their guard down, Adrian would take the opportunity to go to the cellar to get the treasure and escape. This was a hard rule in the game. The player couldn't change this, so Adrian would definitely disappear. Even if the final conspirator escaped, the quest would still be completed, but the completion rate would only be 80%. This guy? Yi Xiaowu muttered to himself. Since the surveillance system didn't have voice, Yi Xiaowu couldn't hear what Gu Fei said after killing Adrian. "You're the idiot. If I kill you, won't the treasures in your cellar be mine?" "Done." Little Rain cheered after killing Adrian. Gu Fei pulled out the quest window to take a look. The quest was still there, so there was probably some follow-up work. At least, he hadn't received any EXP reward up until now. He searched Adrian's body and found a necklace in his arms. Wolf King's Tooth. Equipment effect: transform into a werewolf lord. Duration: 15 minutes. Cooldown: 60 minutes. Gu Fei excitedly picked it up and wanted to try it out, but he received a system notification. Quest item: player can't use it. This was extremely rare in its parallel world. Even if a mage couldn't wear a warrior's armor, they could wear it on their body and press them down. Gu Fei had never experienced something like this that couldn't be worn around his neck. Little Rain wanted to take a look, but Gu Fei was also forced to stop when he gave it to her. It says it's a quest item, Gu Fei said helplessly. Oh. Look through it again. Gu Fei leaned over and continued searching Adrian's corpse. Look for the key to the cellar in the back. There's a lot of money there. As expected, the key was hanging on Adrian's waist. The two excitedly went to the backyard, opened the cellar, and climbed down. There was indeed a lot of wealth, but it was all like the gold in Murphy's sack. The gold was really gold, but in the game, no one knew where to exchange it for game currency. The two looked at each other. What do we do? Little Rain asked. Can this be exchanged for money? Gu Fei asked. I don't think so. The gold in Little Rain's hands could only be exchanged for rewards when she turned in the quest, and it wasn't clear if the reward was money. A cellar full of gold, but it couldn't be exchanged for normal currency. It was an extremely painful thing. Even if they wanted to take it all away, it was impossible. Gold was extremely heavy, and even the sack from before had to be carried by Little Rain. Gu Fei could only carry it 3 steps at most. Forget it. Gu Fei sighed. Little Rain muttered, not gold, it's trash, not gold, it's trash, not gold, it's trash. Thus, the two of them left the cellar. Gu Fei took the Wolf King's Fong to the village chief and told him everything. It's all Adrian's doing. He used this thing to turn into a werewolf and intimidated the villagers into working for him. He even killed Murphy. Gu Fei kept his promise and didn't say that half of the village was werewolves. What a bad guy, the village chief said. It's all thanks to you, warrior. You've resolved a great crisis in our village. To express my gratitude, the village chief turned around and flipped through the cupboard. Gu Fei was excited. The reward was coming, and his hard work wasn't in vain. Take this robe. The village chief turned around and handed Gu Fei a robe, a mage's robe. Gu Fei was extremely disappointed. The mage's robe was just an ordinary one to hide his identity. Now, after such a hard quest chain, he was actually given a mage's robe. Wasn't this a waste? Gu Fei really hated the mage profession. He guessed that the quest rewards were based on the profession. If he was a thief, he would definitely be given a thief's cloak. Take it. The village chief said again. Little Rain was anxious. Hurry up and take it, what are you doing? Gu Fei took it with a bitter face and indifferently glanced at it. The Moonlight Night robe didn't have outstanding defense, which was a common feature of mages' robes. In addition, it had plus 20 intelligence, plus 1 spell mastery, and plus 10% spell attack damage. What spell mastery? Gu Fei asked as he showed it to Little Rain. Little Rain also shook her head blankly. It either added intelligence or spell mastery. It was obviously a branded mage's robe, but for him. Gu Fei sighed. But no matter what, it was much better than a beginner's robe. Just the defense alone was already high. No matter what, it was still a piece of gold equipment. Gu Fei put it on. His whole body was pitch black, reflecting the characteristics of the Knight's brand. It looks very evil, Little Rain commented. Gu Fei was helpless, but then he realized that the village chief had already given out the reward, but the Wolf King's Fong didn't take it. Gu Fei looked at it. It was still a quest item. Oh, could it be that if he showed it to the werewolves, he could exchange it for another reward? Gu Fei's hope was reignited. Chapter 67. With the Wolf King's tooth, Gu Fei went to visit the tall and mighty werewolf. I've already gotten rid of him, Gu Fei said as he handed over the Wolf King's tooth. He used this to transform into a werewolf to deceive you. The big werewolf took a look and said in surprise, Werewolf Lord, no wonder it's so powerful. Not bad, not bad, Gu Fei said. He hadn't seen how powerful the Werewolf Lord was. He had the chance to see it last night at the church, but unfortunately that guy ran away after being injured. You helped us and didn't expose our identities. We're very grateful. The big werewolf said, to avoid similar chaos, can you leave this Wolf King's tooth to us? Gu Fei confirmed. To express our gratitude, the big werewolf turned around and dug out something from under the bed. Gu Fei's heart sank. The village chief's things were kept in the cabinet, but this werewolf threw it under the bed. What could it be? When the werewolf turned around, Gu Fei's eyes lit up. The werewolf held a sword in his hand. The blade was purple, but the surface was covered with a layer of black light. From a visual point of view, it looked like an exquisite item. The werewolf handed it over and Gu Fei took it. Sword of the Dark Knight. The attributes greatly surprised Gu Fei. Not only did this sword have high physical attack, but it also had magic attack, even higher than the staff July had given him. Staffs mainly dealt magic attack, but at the same time, it would also have a symbolic physical attack. But weapons like swords, daggers, and knives would never have two symbolic magic attacks. The sword in front of him not only had magic attack, but it was also very high. Looking down, there were two more lines of data: sword coefficient 170%, magic coefficient 170%. Further down, critical chance 10%, proficiency 10%, agility plus 20, intelligence plus 20, attack speed plus 20%, skill, Dark Knight. Top quality, absolutely top quality. Even if Gu Fei was a noob when it came to games, he could tell how powerful the sword was from the additional attributes. Sword Demon's Frostbite Memories was the most powerful weapon he had ever seen. Compared to this sword, it paled in comparison. No matter how powerful Frostbite's Memories was, it was only a piece of gold equipment. On the other hand, the Nightstreak sword was a piece of purple equipment. Purple equipment was the equipment with the strongest single attribute in the parallel world. Only green equipment could surpass purple equipment. However, green-lettered equipment was a set, and one had to activate the dark attribute in order to unleash its full power. From a single point of view, it was still inferior to a purple equipment. Look at my sword. Gu Fei excitedly gave the sword to Xiao Yu to admire. Little Yu shouted as she watched. In the end, she asked, sword coefficient, magic coefficient, what do these mean? I don't know, Gu Fei said, but it must be very powerful. Because I've never seen this word on a normal weapon. Gu Fei took out the baptism of flames and checked it again. There was absolutely no word coefficient. That's awesome. Little Yu returned the sword to Gu Fei. I want to do this kind of quest too. There's a chance. Gu Fei patted Little Yu. The quest is done, Little Yu said as the two left the room together. Just as they walked out the door, a white light wrapped around Gu Fei. What's going on? Little Yu was so shocked that she had already pulled out her axe. Don't panic, Gu Fei hurriedly shouted. It's nothing. I just leveled up. Why would you level up for no reason? Little Yu asked. Gu Fei glanced at the system notification. Just as he stepped out of the werewolf's room, the system reported to Gu Fei, quest chain use of Eddie completed. 95% completion. Obtained experience and money. The experience allowed Gu Fei to directly rise to level 31. That's a lot of experience. Gu Fei was dumbfounded. The rewards of this quest chain were too generous. Including the village chief's baptism of flames, which increased the stats, it was equivalent to giving 4 pieces of equipment. He didn't think that there would be so much experience in the end. However, there wasn't much money. Gu Fei looked at his wallet. He only had 50 gold coins. How can it not be? Yi Xiaowu smiled bitterly when he saw Gu Fei's surprised expression. After completing a high-level quest chain that spanned so many levels, it would be strange if he didn't have enough experience to level up once. Also, the last 2 rewards of the quest were a few attributes: spell mastery, sword coefficient, and magic proficiency. These were attributes that low-level players hadn't started to use in low-level equipment yet. However, Gu Fei had already obtained high-level equipment through the quest chain. Yi Xiaowu was completely speechless. What made him even more depressed was the depressed expression on Gu Fei's face when he received the Moonlight Spirit robe. At that time, Yi Xiaowu really wanted to pull out his sword and stab him to death. Fortunately, Gu Fei's attitude towards the Nightstreak sword made Yi Xiaowu feel better. Let's go back, Xiao Yu said. Go back where? Cloud City. I'm Master Kong, Xiao Yu said. Don't rush. Gu Fei said, "It's rare for us to walk 3 hours to such a distant main city. Let's take a look around first. Don't you want to see if there are any quests here?" Xiao Yu's eyes lit up. That makes sense. It's best if you can pick up a quest that requires you to return to Cloud City. That way, it won't be a waste of time. Gu Fei was eloquent. Xiao Yu nodded her head and finally decided. That's right. I've decided to stay in Luminous City for a few more days. If you want to go, you can go first. Don't wait for me. I'm a bit tired. I'll go back to the city first. Gu Fei said. The two left Luminous Village and walked towards Moonlit City. The players in the Moonlit City area were just like the leveling area. They were very tough. Just on the short journey from Luminous Village to Moonlit City, they had already seen 4 or 5 groups of people fighting. Moreover, their attacks were very vicious. They wouldn't stop until one side was dead. Gu Fei and Xiao Yu carefully walked around them, afraid that they would accidentally get involved. Gu Fei was still carrying the PK lawsuit on his back. Almost 10 hours had passed since he had gone online from Cloud City until now. There were still 20 more hours before he could clear his name. Entering the city at this time was a bit dangerous, but Gu Fei couldn't care less. This chain of quests was basically mental work. Xiao Yu didn't help much apart from doing physical work. Gu Fei racked his brain for so long. He felt that it was more tiring than fighting monsters. At this time, he only wanted to go offline and rest. After entering Moonlit Night City and bidding farewell to Little Rain, Gu Fei asked a player about the nearest safe zone to log off. Knowing that Gu Fei came from another main city, the player was shocked. After telling Gu Fei the way, he turned to ask Gu Fei and had Gu Fei explain in detail how to get there. Moonlit City can't live. It's too chaotic. There's fighting and killing all day. Even at level 30, no one is leveling. They're piking every day. But Gu Fei didn't understand. There's a lot of experience at level 30. Think about it. If you're at level 35 and you're stuck, then you'll lose 25 out of 29. It's a huge loss. Nowadays, people are afraid of this loss and don't dare to level. Then, they're afraid that other people will level up. Isn't it a vicious cycle? The player explained. There's such a thing. Gu Fei was dumbfounded. Sigh, there's nothing I can do. I don't dare level, so I'm grinding trade skills. Moonlit City's trade skills are quite high. If you want to make some equipment or potions, then you didn't come here for nothing. The player explained. Right, I forgot to ask you. What's the name of your city? Cloud City. Gu Fei said. Damn, Cloud City? The city with melee mages? The player cried out in surprise. Melee mage? Don't tell me you don't know? He's currently number 1 on the PK wanted list, the guy with code 27149. He's a mage, but he puts all his stats into dexterity and plays melee. A little thief was killed by him in 2 or 3 hits. Damn, this feels too good. This kind of character should come to our Moonlit City. We can definitely hold him down. Gu Fei's expression didn't change, but he was deeply moved. He thought about how he had nowhere to display his martial arts in real life. In the game, he had only used a hair from 9 oxen, yet he was able to stir up a storm and gain the respect of tens of thousands of people. Martial arts, after all, was used for combat. Only in this battlefield could it be exchanged for the greatest respect. Gu Fei was lost in thought thinking about Kung Fu, but that person was lost in thought looking at Gu Fei's clothes. Didn't you just say that the nearest safe zone is from here? Gu Fei pointed at the street in front of him. That's right. I'll go first. See you again if there's a chance. Gu Fei said goodbye to the person. Goodbye. The person nodded. Gu Fei stepped onto the street. The person watched Gu Fei's back and opened his mercenary channel. I found a fat sheep. How fat? Someone asked in the channel. A black mage robe. Have you seen it before? The person said. What attributes? I didn't appraise it. The person replied. Damn, isn't your appraisal at level 8? Damn, there's always a higher mountain. Haven't you heard? Level 8 isn't the best, the person replied. His appraisal is so high. I'm afraid he's not a small character. Can we provoke him? Don't worry. No problem. I don't know why this person came from another main city. He's alone. If we don't kill him, who else can we kill? Hurry up. He's going to the offline zone to log off. Which line is he going? C line. Damn, isn't that still far away? Then hurry up. I'll catch up. The person entered stealth mode and slowly followed behind Gu Fei. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.